Want to plant sugarcane?
How do you know?
Because she comes from an area where other people plant sugarcane.
I can only assume that when she said, look, Mama Mia, nimeona lazima nifanya kitu kwa ile shamba baba yangu aliniachia. So now she wants to plant sugarcane. So I said I'll ask CT.
Well,
we shall go about it.
Let me put it this way. How far is her homestead from the nearest sugar mill?
Factory. Yes, me, I don't know. She said, she said that there are these small sugar companies that are taking cane. Yes,
they do take cane and they rob the living daylights out of you.
So now
what's the neighbor's experience?
She tells me wanna leap after 2 weeks. Yes, wanna leap after 2 weeks because you don't know what it is you should be paid. You don't. Yes, most people have no clue what it is they're supposed to be paid per kilo or per ton. Okay, and because they know they're going to pay you quickly, they will pay you. First of all, I'm not even sure that the weights that these companies have are actually properly configured. No.
So now the woman is trying to figure out if she should do this or if she should plant something else.
The reason why I'm asking this all-important question is, it is without a doubt conclusive that sugar mills that were run by the government as parastatals or whatever you want to call them have all collapsed. All. Yet the private sugar mills are thriving and making money.
I think this is what she was referring to.
Private ones.
And I'm asking, look, two things she needs to consider. The cane that she wants to plant, there are varieties of cane that only take 9 months before they mature. Okay? There's one called Natal 60 or something like that, so I keep forgetting. I no longer plant canes. I lost interest in the details. If she chooses the variety that takes 18 months,
just needs to think about
I'm asking you, what are the neighbors doing?
Maize, a couple of cane here and there, according to her.
Okay.
So she wants cane to sell at the market, or she wants cane to sell to the factory?
The companies. To the companies is what she said.
You're better off with maize. Yes. Because...
To sell to? Whoever.
Well, one, you can consume it yourself. You can dry it. You can conserve it. It can be food for you at a later date.
The woman is looking for money to send her children to school.
Sugarcane... Let her plant cane and let her have the experience. And then, because you will tell her all you want to do, she has already decided. She
has made up her mind already. I think she was asking me
from a point of... She
was asking me to rubber stamp her decision.
The rubber stamp will come with a plea for assistance.
Yeah. She has done her ground research. She has checked around what are the neighbors doing, what is the bigger income generating crop in that neighborhood. Is it maize? Is it cassava? Is it yams? Is it sugarcane? And she has settled on sugarcane. Wanalipa after 2 weeks. Okay? Research done. Now the next phase, we are at the funding stage.
This way you come in.
Yes.
She has come to ask me my opinion.
Yes. She knows what she wants to do. She didn't really need your opinion.
Okay. So just be prepared for that.
Got it.
Yeah. So now, you can go back and give her now your, research from CT. Plant T1 555. Don't plant the other varieties.
What did you call it?
Natalia, what?
No. Forget the name of the... Just ask for if they have a variety that takes a shorter time.
6 months or 9 months or 18 months?
There's no 6 months that I know of. Okay. If it exists, it probably came into being after I had stopped bothering with sugarcane.
Yeah.
It probably did that. Welcome to the show, where everybody. Today we're going to have a series of conversations. This week, that is ending tomorrow, has been the vaccine week.
It has.
Immunization week. World Immunization Week. And with the whole conversation about immunization, of course, right now is focusing on this particular vaccine on COVID-19. Everything else is still at play, but COVID-19 takes center stage. Today we'll be having a conversation with the Israeli ambassador to Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, and the Seychelles to give us their own experience with their vaccination campaign. We've looked and seen that Israel is among the leading countries in terms of the success of their vaccination for COVID-19. A big percentage of their population has already been immunized, but it's a small population, but still. A huge percentage of people have been immunized, What are the lessons that they're learning? What have they seen? What decision-making led them to this particular point? That conversation will start at 7. And then at 7:30, we'll talk about teenage pregnancies in Kenya. This is a shadow pandemic, according to very many civil society and other activists. We'll be having a conversation with somebody from Plan International who will be joining us at 7:30. Keep it here for that conversation. We are back with AgriTalk, a conversation on agribusiness, farming and food security, the economics of dairy farming in Kenya. A dairy investment expert and a lead consultant will be joining us. And then we will talk about this new platform that CT was speaking all jittery about, the new land information management system and its rollout and what needs to happen. We'll be speaking with a lands expert, Dr. Mwenda Makathino. Will be with
Eric, I wasn't jittery. I was definitive.
Completely.
Definitive. Unshakably so.
Kwa sababu bado haujanini wewe, hujatry ile system. Anyway, so the
Eric,
conversation will happen.
Unajaribu kuniambia mimi sielewi web.
Haujui vile unasema.
Sielewi web.
Sielewi hizi vitu za teknolojia.
Web sielewi
Web.
Na yule jamaa anaitwa Inter.
Webu.
World Wide Web.
I understand the web.
Interwebu.
I understand internetu. I understand everything. Anyway,
Erasmus.
Carry on, Eric.
At 9, conversation about tea. Understanding the tea trade. Now, we'll be talking about from the market end. We'll be talking about this agriculture business from the production end and the aggregation end. Now, today, we talk about it from the end market. The head of the East Africa Tea Traders Association. Who will be joining us at 9. Let's understand this auction and how this auction is run. Who manages it? Are they regulated? Who makes the money? Who keeps the money?
How much money do they make?
Can we get some of that money? All that. Lazima tu. Yeah. I mean, why else are we having this conversation?
Ukweli wa mambo.
Yeah. But let's start with this COVID issue.
Let's do that, shall we? Let's look at information that came from the National Emergency Response Committee yesterday. I think it was announced a few hours before that. But what they're telling us as fellow Kenyans is that the response to COVID-19 remains a constant matter. And therefore, as a country, please let us not relent in our vigilance. As a matter of fact, the NERC held a crisis meeting Tuesday to deliberate on a raft of issues, following which a number of resolutions were arrived at. So this came out yesterday, but they observed that the dire events in India and noted the increasing surge of COVID-19 infections in the country. They empathized with the situation through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with the government of India. They went on then to say that they regretted the events nonetheless, and given the obtaining situation, resolved to suspend all passenger flights in and out of the country for a period of 14 days, subject to review. The suspension is to take effect 72 hours following that announcement. That is from tomorrow. And then all those who are arriving from India within that time period will be subjected to a rapid antigen testing upon arrival at ports of entry and shall be required to strictly observe a 14-day quarantine period that will be closely monitored by health officials. Cargo services, however, will remain in operation. And looking at other things, they've also noted that oxygen in the country has been a critical component in the fight against the virus. They've been tasked with supporting the county governments in upscaling their oxygen supply capacity. And they've announced that the Ministry of Health is currently working on enhanced oxygen manufacturing, including exploring avenues for production of bulk liquid oxygen through engagement with relevant stakeholders. So in answer to your question the other day, Eric, in terms of what are they actually going to do now that we've seen it's still needed moving forward.
So who are these?
Who
are these that you're quoting?
The National Emergency Response Committee.
They're doing what?
Together with the Ministry of Health. They've also supported the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital to establish the largest hospital-based oxygen generating plant in East and Central Africa, and it will produce 2,000 litres of oxygen per minute. This plant will be ready for commissioning by June 2021.
By June?
Yes.
All right. It's May on Saturday.
Yes.
In short, they're in the process of building it, and it will be completed in
in 30 days, it'll be done.
In 60 days.
Wait.
Okay, June has 30 days. Eh?
Yes,
so
but
did it
by
say June 1st?
By June means...
June 30th is by June.
No, no.
By June means
just before June the 1st.
Yes.
That's what you think?
Yes.
No, that's what by means. By.
But they also told us vaccines will be
If they
here.
said in June, then you can push
else.
it to 30, even 31st if you want. But
You say I'll be there at 2, and you people are the ones who have told us that even I come at 2:43, it's still 2. I'll be or not?
there is the reality of the language and there's the practice of it. Okay? When a Kenyan tells you, I will be there on time, okay? You have to be flexible with the expectations.
Flexible meaning 24 hours.
24 hours is usually good.
It's advisable.
Okay.
It's good.
Thank
But
you for that lesson. We learned something new.
yes, if you want to be picky about it, then you can give it an allowance of 3 or 4 hours before the sun goes down.
Voila.
Yes.
Okay. A total of 853,081 persons have been vaccinated against the coronavirus disease. So still leaving about, so it looks like just under 4,000 people were vaccinated in the last 24 hours. In fact, less than that. And so they're still looking to finish that 1,080,000 doses. So hopefully that opens up soon. Conversations about new vaccines coming in, we'll wait and see. The situation in India's hospitals, overwhelming. Deaths have now passed 200,000 in India. Oxygen remains critically low across the country, and the black market now is the only option that's available for some people. There have been, look at this, 300,000 new infections every day for the last 7 days. 2.1 million have been infected in the last 1 week. More than 360,000 new cases in the past 24 hours. Overall, 17.9 million cases, just on the brink of 18 million, have been recorded in India. They're still suffering. Hospitals are overwhelmed. They're not able to deal with this at all. And unfortunately, the situation is getting worse. So this one, it doesn't look good at all.
This oxygen that's available in the black market.
There was a 6.4 magnitude earthquake that occurred in one of the Indian states yesterday. Jeez. So just imagine now the catastrophe that they're dealing with.
Sheesh.
Okay.
I was asking, the oxygen that's available in the black market, oxygen is not something that you just hide and, so
you just say it quickly so nobody notices.
Yes. So how does it get to this black market? Is it locally produced oxygen that then...
Or it was previously available oxygen that some people decided to hoard and then make available for,
or there are people who are importing. Which is which?
C'est la question. But yeah, it's there. And for those who can't access this black market, because clearly it's expensive, more expensive than it would normally be.
Eric, I think if you consider that when we think of oxygen, we think of this element that is freely available that we breathe in. But it can be packaged, it can be containerized,
and stored.
It can be stored. Now, if it can be stored, it means it can be hoarded.
Right?
Yes.
I get all that.
Yes.
But you see, it's also not something that people just manufacture. You don't just walk around and find, you know what, I just set up an oxygen plant here. So the number of oxygen companies are known and they're there. And even if they had manufactured initially, they had sold in bulk and people had bought and stored. By this time, the demand is so high you don't even need to go to the black market.
You do. If you look at, for instance, the manner in which the vaccines have been hoarded, okay? Meaning you were instrumental in helping develop the vaccine, producing it, and in so doing you pre-ordered. In the same way, there are people who, understanding this, remember, if you are a private manufacturing plant, it's a business. If I come and buy everything that you have and buy into the future, see, I've already hoarded it. Yes. Then I decide how I'm going to sell it and to whom I'm going to sell it. Black market, only black.
Blakey. Safi.
Okay. Let's take a break then at this particular point and take a look at the weather, and then we'll shortly be looking at the headlines. Live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Is it up or is it not?
Amleoto will put it up in a minute.
Okay. Sawa. Nesawa. In the meantime, let's tell you about the jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, this particular website and portal where you go and get all the jobs from that have been posted on Standard Media, not by Standard, but by any advertiser who is looking for employees. Go subscribe and get job alerts that are relevant to you, coming to you via your email or SMS. A number of jobs with that have been posted lately: enumerators, medical detailer, human research business partner, third-party monitoring lead consultant, purchasing specialist, sales team leader, experienced fitters, welders and mechanical workshop assistants, data entry interns, all those jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na pembe.
Hii ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with Spice FM.
Nairobi, rain showers this morning at 17, in some parts at least. Highs of 24 will be recorded today. It's also raining in Nyeri at 15, highs of 24. 24 will also be the high recorded in Nakuru. It's mostly cloudy at 16. 12 degrees in Eldoret and mostly cloudy conditions. Highs of 24, highs of 29 in Kisumu. Light rain at 20 in some parts. It's mostly cloudy in Kakamega at 16, highs of 27 and lows of 15. Highs of 30 will be recorded in Mombasa today, where it's raining this morning at 27. It still continues to rain in certain parts of Malindi. Highs of 30 and lows of 26. 27 will be the high in Kampala. Light rain this morning as well at 19. Dar es Salaam is also experiencing some rain showers at 25. That'll be the low for today. It'll go to highs of 30. 23 will be recorded as a high in Johannesburg. It's clear this morning at 11. Mostly clear conditions in Lagos for now at 26. Highs of 33. 32 will be the high in Kinshasa. It's 24 and raining at the moment. Looking out east into Beijing, 19 degrees, sunny conditions. It'll go to highs of 21 and lows of 9. 14 will be the high recorded in Paris this morning. It is raining at 7. 6 degrees and clear in London, highs of 11 and lows of a chilly 2. And 17 degrees, quite warm for a New York night. It'll probably cool down as it comes into Thursday morning. We'll take a look-see. Right now being touted for 27 as the high.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
21 minutes.
94.4 Spice FM.
The hour. All right. Many people are online, but we are not able to see who is online at this point. We'll see you shortly. City, today's proverb.
Indeed, isn't it just a wonderful day for a proverb? If you know this one is fortuitous. Again, let me read it anyway, and then the decision and the jury can determine. If you can't resolve your problem in peace, you can't resolve war.
If you can't resolve your problems in peace, you can't resolve war.
It's a Somali proverb.
It's so layered.
Right. It's a Somali proverb.
It's so layered.
If you can't resolve your problems in peace, you can't resolve war.
Yes.
You know, it could be like, yeah, I see. Many ways in which you can look at it.
Many ways to look at it. More ways than one.
Like when you are at peace, like when there's a calm, then you have problems that you can solve. You can sort out. But when there's war within you, and you can't really look at your problems and figure them out. At the same time, if you cannot if you cannot solve these problems with a calm outlook, when you are upset and angry and all over the place, even more difficult for you to be able to look at things with a clear eye. N'est-ce pas?
Sister.
Profound.
Today is that day. Watch out, Safi.
You just needed the words peace and war.
And I can go.
And you can come up with anything. If this light
was really the light.
Yes, was really the light, then there would be peace.
Why are you shallowing my depth?
If this light dimmed, that's war.
You know, I'll bite you.
Okay, Tolstoy, we've got you.
Sheesh. Okay.
Just say it has touched you. Hambo.
Right.
It
Leo,
has touched you.
We're
It has
with you,
touched
Leo.
you. Yeah. Today in history, before we look at the headlines, in 1974, on this day, the 29th of April, somebody in charge of the KEMSA then was jailed.
The KEMSA then.
The KEMSA then was called?
The KEMSA then was called the Government Central Medical Stores. Zakaria Bukhala Simechero, former deputy secretary in charge of the government's Central Medical Stores, was jailed for 5 years and ordered to pay to the government some £7,162, which he denied corruptly receiving as a bribe from a director of Polychemist, Mr. Arvind Kumar Patel. Nairobi Senior Resident Magistrate P.S. Bra passed the sentence. Failure to do so would have resulted in his property being attached.
This thing didn't start today. Not be, as we say in
KEMSA
Nigeria,
issues.
not be today. You don't say. Not be today. Sheesh. 19 what?
74.
Okay.
70 what? 4.
You know, I thought it was 73. You know, I found it interesting. There's a colleague of mine who, while explaining to me some of the salient differences in communities, he asked me, indicate to me the numerical number 3 with your fingers. And I did this. He told me, in my community, it is. Yes.
And you have to shake.
Yes.
This.
It's not just 3, it is.
You have to shake it.
Why?
So it's either you do this or you do.
Oi.
Or why are you doing this? Why not this?
Well, that is the phenomenon. Now, you see, you are asking me to explain a cultural phenomenon, isn't it? I'm not going to explain because I don't understand it either. This and this.
And you have to when
and
you,
you sort of like, why do we have to shake
you
it?
have to shake it.
Yeah,
And
the other ones, shake.
And 2 is. You must do the finger.
No. You really have to move the fingers up and down.
It's not 2.
No, then you can't, at this.
I understand.
No. It has to be this.
So if you don't shake it or you don't rub them together, it's not 2.
No.
I've seen John doing it before.
What?
That thing for 2. This guy.
2?
I've seen him.
Okay, let's take a look at the headlines.
All right.
Yeah.
It seems, according to the Daily Nation, that there's a rush to install Kome. Hurried or not is the question. A day after receiving her nomination by the Judicial Service Commission, President Kenyatta has asked the National Assembly to vet Martha Koome for the position of Chief Justice. The Speaker wants MPs to speed up the process, even though the law allows for 28 days in order to complete this. But yesterday we did see that the President did send her name to Parliament then for the subsequent vetting of her in this position. So no time is being wasted.
Right.
So MPs have been told, let's get this thing done and dusted. Let's move it forward. Justin Muturi said yesterday that he had received communication from the president asking the House to vet the Court of Appeal judges. And although the Public Appointments Act provides that the vetting, approval or rejection be done within 28 days from when the notification of the nomination was given, the Speaker urged MPs to speed up the process. I quote, in view of the compelling public interest and the unique place of the Office of the Chief Justice in our constitutional and legal order, the committee is requested to consider the nomination on a priority basis. And this is what he told the Legal Affairs Committee. He directed the team to ensure that it notifies the nominee and the general public of the time and place for the holding of the hearings expeditiously. Okay?
Okay.
So this is going to happen quickly.
So the rush is in comparison to what happened in the case of former Chief Justices Maraga and Mutunga. the number of days it took, the time it took before the president forwarded that name to Parliament. So in the case of Maraga, how many days? How many weeks?
It was weeks.
Right?
It was weeks.
A couple of weeks, right? Yeah. And then in the case of the President Mwai Kibaki, took also some weeks before
handing over Willie Mutunga's
name. Forwarding the name of Willie Mutunga. Dr. Mutunga was nominated in May 2011. President Kibaki took almost a month to forward his name to Parliament. Right? And in the case of Justice David Maraga, the President Uhuru Kenyatta forwarded his name to Parliament after 1 week. In the case of, I think it's just showing efficiency in the executive.
Okay.
Okay.
So
yeah, just showing we are getting faster. The ease
as
of doing,
time goes by,
ease of doing business
really
now.
quickly.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Kibaki took almost a month.
Then a week.
Uhuru took about a week.
Then
now Uhuru has taken a day.
It's okay.
But
next time it'll
Hours.
be day.
But what is also moving quickly in this particular terrain? The protests.
Against the nomination.
Yes. A gentleman by the name of one Mr. Suvula has voiced his opinion on this matter and has said, he's an MP, and said, folks, you can't have yet another person from this same region, surely in a position of authority. I mean, this region is going to have, come on, president from the same region, okay? Judiciary, same region. Actually,
National Assembly,
same region. Actually, you know something?
Yeah.
The political optics that we seem to talk about as being ideal sometimes don't really matter. This is my opinion. Okay? I would venture to ask the question, are these people competent?
Which one specifically?
These people who had. All these people who had.
The people being appointed.
These people come from that region who have been appointed. Are they competent? Are they able to discharge their duties well? If the answer is yes, then the other things that may come in are now detailed as far as I'm concerned.
And it doesn't matter.
Okay, so that whole place is one region. If you start from here in Kawangware, go all the way to the end of Meru's boundary with Garissa, that is all one region.
Yes, it's one region.
Okay. The Merus are Kikuyus of Meru. And the
Actually,
Embus are Kikuyus of Embu.
From Embu, yes.
And the Mberes are Embus were Kikuyus of Mbere.
Yes, exactly.
And Tiganias are the same.
And those are Kikuyus from that side of Meru.
So.
Okay.
Nesawa ende.
And anybody in between.
Yes.
No Kikuyus.
Kirinyaga. Kikuyu.
Don't confuse us.
Don't confuse us.
From Kirinyaga.
Okay. Okay, Savula. And there's the other issue as well of, remember there's a challenge or the petition that has been filed by civil society organizations, Katiba Institute, Professor Makao Mutua, opened the server. They opened the server conversation. So if this vetting takes place quick, chap, what happens to the open the server movement?
What happened to the previous open the server movement?
Yes. One of the candidates, remember, Fred Ngatia, the story is here on page 7 of the Standard as well. He says, the JSC team rigged me out of the CJ position.
No.
I am thankful to the JSC commissioners who truthfully graded me high in the region of 80% to 95% marks. I only have pity for the commissioners who sacrificed their souls by altering my grades to achieve the outcome of the final nomination. That's what he was saying, right?
Let me ask this question. Other members, other contestants, other would-be nominees, did they also have this insight that one Mr. Ngatia had about the results?
Maybe they did. They're just choosing not to talk.
I would like to know, before I comment further on this matter, because people are rarely told the marks. Rarely.
Yeah.
Rarely. You
like
will not
now,
be told.
We are
You will
asking
not
for
be
the server to be
told.
opened, but somebody already knows the content of the server.
Yeah.
Or it is telling us that they know
Or
the
telling
content.
us that they know.
No.
And how many other people are complaining about this, number one? Number two, had it you been in the position where you were then selected and others complained, what would you then have made of it?
But let me
You'd have
also
told them,
bring,
yeah,
let me
I was
also
graded
bring in
high.
another perspective here. Positions such as this one, I highly doubt whether the high scoring marks is what determines whether you will be. No, they're
It's not whether
always.
you got an A or an A
No.
minus here.
No.
The other
You get to a
factors.
certain threshold, it's not one person. There may be 3 of you, then it is decided. Given that we want someone for this job, what else are we looking for?
See, they should have added that on as well.
I'm sure it is
Add
there.
that on the column. So we are grading you in terms of your suitability per tribe, I give you a 10. In terms of your suitability by age, I give you a 5. In terms
Experience?
of everything else,
Eric,
all those other factors.
You know how, like, when you join a course
let them
in
all
university,
be there.
you know,
tribe, no one is going to end.
Political affiliation, I give you an 8.
You know how in your coursework you have, out of 100 points, 20 is going to come from this, 30 is going to come from this, like that. So you know that this is what you scored overall.
There's a reason
all
why
those other considerations should also
there's a reason
be
why
graded
I am
fairly
stating
and
this, because I have been part and parcel of interview panels, interviewing people for very senior positions. I have been. And you get these 3 candidates who seem very good. Then there's a discussion. We know this job that we have at hand.
Yes.
All right? And then we also know something about this person which we did not talk about in public, and their track record of how it is they've done before in similar positions. And we know this job that we have.
Yes.
Do we think this person is the person who's going to be most suited? Now, that discussion takes place. It's never aired out in public, but it takes place.
That's true. You know, my argument is, let it also be clear in terms of grading. So if you're grading me in terms
You've already been graded, Eric.
Yeah, with everything. Add this one as well. As a column there and a row. In terms of perception, your perception of this person's suitability, give there and say, yes, they performed very well, their academic credentials are good, they answered all the questions that we asked them, but my perception, damu yangu na damu yake zinapendana. You give them 2.
But Eric, what makes you think that isn't there? Because there is also the discretion that panel has to determine who it is they think. Discretion. Now, discretion, haina marks.
You know, some ipewe marks.
And I'm trying to say, the marks
is the one who did not like
Eric,
you.
the marks that are given there is called, the marks that are given in such a situation is called consensus. They agree and say, actually, everything else considered, okay? So and so, wacha tu abaki university and endelee kufundisha because it's very good. Lakini, this job and the balance we want, no.
Can't.
This person, yes. That discussion has to take place. Look, it's the reality of interviews at that level. Your academic qualifications takes you there. Your political affiliations take you there. Your years of experience takes you there. Then the balance of all these things takes you over there.
25 to 7. You know, I have some thought. When we come out of this break, I'll tell you my thoughts on what Senior Counsel Fred Ngatia is doing here. 25 to 7. Let's look at traffic, and then we'll be seeing who's online. I can see Mulioto has done his thing, so people are now able to say hello to us.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a Mili. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN. The realest and craziest couple are now on your screens. Terrence and Chebi are bringing you top celebrities and trendsetters on Thursday Night Live. It's double the fun and double the laughter every Thursday at 10 p.m. on KTN Home.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Let's look outside of Nairobi, starting things now. In Mombasa this morning, 3 ferries serving you, and KFS has let us know that everything will be okay. Remember, pay your toll charges, *721#, and adhere to all COVID-19 health protocols. That's a reminder from KFS this morning. Otherwise, things seem to be moving very smoothly in Mombasa. Outbound, moving out west, there was an accident right around the Maimahiu area this morning at the POW hospital. So there's an accident that has occurred there, and it's slowing down traffic significantly. So headed out of Nairobi into those parts, you might want to watch out for that. Please do, because it's slowing down traffic. Let's move back into the city. Coming off Mombasa Road, it's slow. It's moving, however. You get to General Motors, you should be fine then outbound. The bypasses up for service this morning. Red Hill, Eastern, Northern and Southern looking pretty good. We'll take a look at Thika Road when we come back, but it seems that things are just opening up. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Online.
Okay, guys, we're not ignoring you, that's for sure. Levy Dennis, good morning. Watching from Kilifi County. Asante sana, karibu sana. Kolango says, good morning, great show. Thank you so much, karibu. Chris Amolo, hamujambo wangwana. Great to be here, tuning from Kisumu. Angurai, Teso North, Omei Village. That's where Gabriel Cyrus is tuned in from. Young Maranga, good morning. Have a lot to say about Kome and the reasons why she was elected. Well, karibu sana to the show this morning. Ivewa Francis, Jeffrey Mochama from Kisumu as well. Daniel Mwenje locked in this morning. From Lanette is where Robert Kiragu is. And from Diani Beach, Ukunda, that's where Jacob Lucina is tuned in from. Dorcas Kimodo tuned in from Malindi County. Yeah? Bishogoro Omokaya says, good morning, people. Following the show from Getari Village, Karibu as well. Finally, we are here. Cyprian Maura, good morning to you from County 032. Jose Mina Dohio, second to comment. Well, good morning to you. And I guess the first was Bila Collins. Good morning. And from Kisumu. And from Zambia in Kabwe. That's where Inonge Bongi Kabwe is tuned in from. Good morning and Karibu Sana, everybody.
Kabesa. So before we look at that, other headlines, I was just thinking, what if Senior Counsel Fred Ngatia is doing this to send a message and bring up a conversation?
What message would he be sending?
And
it's
to
a
who?
clear and open process in terms of the interviewing process. It's clear who makes the determination. It's clear how the determination is made and how it's announced. And then you come and claim rigging. Showing the absurdity of it.
Actually, I hadn't thought that far. But it's a very interesting perspective.
It just crossed my mind. You know, this man has actually argued such cases before in court. And maybe he has personally felt, why are we even spending time about this?
When you can just rig.
No.
No.
What, with the arguments fronted?
What is actually being, according to Eric, it is let us understand the other nature of the rigging claims. Yes, we hear it all the time, but surely.
He's on the other end of it now.
Yes.
According to him.
And according to him, what Eric is saying, look, is it really worth our time to be looking into these things all the time?
No, does it always sound legit? Just because somebody has said I was rigged and I knew the result. I knew I had won.
Yeah, does it justify their reasoning to say that
I knew I had won and I was rigged? So someone asked, so how did you know? How do you know you had won?
It looks like a fallback plan. Yeah.
How do you know you had won? Were you the one counting? Were you the one who voted?
Or do you have some information that we don't know? Some information we do not know about.
It is a valid perspective, Eric. It's a very, very valid perspective.
Aye, let's look at other headlines. The land story. Apparently, there was some serious uptake of this system.
And then?
No.
Look at you. CT. Justification for your position.
No. Yes, 6,000 uptake. And then?
Up to 6,000 Kenyans yesterday registered on the new online land management portal.
Yes.
Let's skip this other second part of this sentence. Even as lawyers and land experts faulted system hitches that delayed transactions and frustrated users. Being the first day of use after Thursday's launch by the president, the digital system known as Sasa was yesterday marked by delays in registration of transaction accounts, which is the first step of using the platform. This led to difficulties in accessing land transaction services, conveyance lawyers were telling the nation yesterday. Services offered on the electronic platform include property search, transfer, order of the title, and order of plans. One of these lawyers says, the system has been problematic all day. We did not manage to process any transaction. But the CS, Farida Karone, says the system had denied that the system was experiencing significant downtime, saying 6,000 users were registered.
Of course.
It is effective, she says. It's a highly available system and has not been down. That's what she says.
Right.
Somebody else who also used the system, Jacqueline Munyaka, a land conveyancing practitioner, said, though the system is easy and straightforward, users will take time to be proficient. Her lesson: I used the new system and realized that for a smooth transaction, all documents must be readily at hand, scanned and uploaded on the computer. It gave me a real-time response and has strict confidentiality. It is easier than the paper transactions, and there is no issue of follow-up because it indicates when the response for the transaction will be available. No human handling or facilitation fees to get the work done. She also says that she has realized that for you to complete this transaction, the landowner must also be present, at least logged onto the system. You see? The landowner, so you can't have a tier fraudster here coming to say, transfer this land. No, the landowner will also need to log in.
Jimmy in Malindi gave us a lovely perspective yesterday.
Of a Tigan point in
Yep. But more importantly, that is only 6,000 people.
Yeah.
Imagine when it gets to 12,000, 24,000,
there were no
48,000.
This person who did not want to be quoted, right, did not have all their ducks in a row. You see what Jacqueline is saying?
They didn't have all their papers scanned and whatnot.
Have all your documents scanned on the machine. Okay. Now, if you go start logging and then it tells you, give me this document. Wait, let the file. Systems times out.
Jackie does not talk about her having completed a transaction. She just says she learned. It means the transaction.
She says she used the new system and realized it's smooth transactions. All documents must be ready. She says she used it.
Yes, doesn't mean she completed her transactions. I'm trying to say this, Eric, it isn't that I think the system cannot work. What I was really pitching a fit about was someone saying that it'll end corruption. It won't.
To end fraud.
It won't.
It will significantly minimize incidences and opportunities for corruption.
It will not. They haven't showed us how that will happen. It can, but until I am shown how exactly it will do so, a system that is run by people.
You're not boarding this.
No, I'm not. I'm not. Okay, it will reduce. Yes, all those things you're saying it can do. What I'm even wondering why was there no trial run before all this? Surely, are you telling me
it was tested? Karone says it was tested for 3 months.
Precisely. So
they were checking on the strength of the system security,
so they shouldn't have
administrative features.
No, 6,000 only.
To tighten loopholes.
No.
The hitches here, in my understanding of reading this story, the hitches are what we call user challenges. Users, I think what they should have done, and Farida is saying that what they're going to do is start a user education campaign on radio and other multimedia platforms. They should have started with that as well. Basically say a new system is coming up and have that whole tutorial happening on TV, have the tutorials happening on radio. This is what you need to do. When you go log on to Artisasa, have all your documents, blah, 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 blah. You shall do this, it shall ask you this, it shall ask you the other. What you're seeing here are land conveyancing lawyers. Remember, even the first time the lawyers were told to go digital, they was having issues. Lawyers, oh no, I don't. It is user challenges.
Eric.
Users do not know what to expect, and so they are learning, and so they find that as
valid
frustrating.
Point. eCitizen had a far larger user base.
Yes.
Far larger.
Yes.
Did we hear complaints?
Many.
Yes, and what are the complaints about?
Many. First of all, somebody has already gone and created their account on the system, but you go and realize that was not, I don't know, there's something about it has not been harmonized, or you're not in the system, I need to go and put you in the system. Many such cases. I remember somebody who was, what are they doing? Were they transacting for, was it motor vehicle, or was it renewing a license? One of those. And the system just could not proceed. So they had to go to, they say, come to the office. You go to the office and the person at the Huduma Center tells you, I can see. The challenge here is I need to manually add you into the system. Those glitches.
Do you know, Eric, what would have been so difficult, instead of painting this picture of a perfect heaven that this system is going to give us, what was so difficult in saying, folks, as we begin this perfect system, there will be hitches.
Yes.
And we expect it. Because the truth of the matter is this. Doing that trial run, that's the whole purpose. For you to see that, okay, now in real time, real situations, what are we going to have?
Right.
And when these things occur, you are then given that perfect opportunity to rectify and to make it right.
Yeah.
Something else that is happening, Port of Lamu. Remember Lamu Port being built over a period of time? Well, as we speak now, at the end of this month, they are also set for, well, June 15th is when they're set for commissioning, but the trial run as to how the port works and functions begins at the end of this coming month.
Nice.
Now, you see, there is absolutely no system that you are going to unleash to the unsuspecting public that cannot go through a trial run. Okay, if vaccines are still on trial, yeah, they are on trial actually.
Yeah.
Yes,
Globally.
Yes, emergency use is trial. They're still on trial. So, what about this system? I am against the way they are presenting it. Not that IT doesn't work. Not that these things are not good. They're actually excellent. But you must speak and say it tell us as it is.
Yeah, and start a campaign. Maybe identify some X number of people who will do the transactions, and then roll it out and say, so we tried out with 7,000 people who logged on in a single day, and this is what they were able to do the search, they were able to transfer. Then we increased this from 6,000 to 10,000 people logging on a single day. Blah, blah,
Let
blah.
us still
20,
random sample
50.
it in the counties. Choose a variety of counties that have a completely different demographic composition and what have you, and say, this is what we did. You see, all I'm saying is, this one-size-fits-all that was being presented is false. That is all that I am saying. Yes, a truer picture could have been presented about this system.
Keep it here. Dr. Mwenda Makathimo, lands expert, will be joining us at 7:30. So that's 8:30. So we'll ask him all these questions that City is raising and what his thoughts are on the platform. Okay. GenerationNextChallenge.com. Have you registered your child on holiday? GenerationNextChallenge.com, where ages of kindergarten up to 11th grade, this time when they're at home, let them be busy. Register your child. They participate in the Kenya National Challenge. It's just about connecting math with real life and seeing how do I apply math and all these things that we're talking about. Robotics, computer science, computational skills, creativity, all that. Let them do this on GenerationNextChallenge.com. 10 to 7.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Evan Nosingishi was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
What
you.
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Another headline.
So, Kenya may get share of the 60 million doses of the US AstraZeneca vaccine.
If we do it.
If we wait.
Before or after India?
So, You'll have to wait a little longer to know. And so now, if this is what they're waiting for, essentially, is approval. And if they get this approval, then the United States is ready to share.
From their own authorities.
From their own authorities that the AstraZeneca vaccine is safe for use. So they're waiting for this
so
approval.
Everybody else, all those other countries
who approved, no, their own is not okay.
But the Federal Drug Administration has not approved. So these guys are still keeping their...
So why did they buy all these drugs that they seem to be iffy about approving?
So that they can have.
Okay.
They had participated in funding for the development.
Yeah, and part of the agreement was that
you shall
be given a certain amount. Okay.
According to the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in an interview on Tuesday, he said the decision is yet to be made on which countries would benefit from the donation, as the process by which to share the vaccine is still under consideration. Kenya is among countries experiencing a serious shortage on the AstraZeneca vaccine following India's ban on exports. All right. So Kenya will wait and see if they can actually get some. And he has held talks with Uhuru Kenyatta and Foreign Affairs CS Rachel Omamo. So we'll wait and see what happens. Now, even as we talk about that, it would appear, according to the PBB, Sputnik 5, the jab is still available in the country even after the ban. Kenyans have continued to receive the controversial Russian Sputnik 5 vaccine even after the government banned its contribution, sale and administration. Right. When the Ministry of Health revoked the licenses that it had issued to private hospitals to administer the vaccine on the 2nd of April, only 228 individuals had received their first doses and were the only people eligible for the second. Now, according to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, as it picked the doses for re-export, reveals that 1,293 people had received their first and second doses of the Sputnik 5. It's very interesting because on their daily reports, the Ministry of Health themselves talk about Sputnik 5 and who has received that, even though making the announcement that it had been banned.
How many ministries of health do we have in this country?
Officially one.
Okay. And
do you want East Wing or West Wing?
Which one do you want?
Even when they tell us that the vaccine has been re-exported, there will be still remnants of that vaccine within the country. I doubt even that when they tell us that X number of vaccines were the ones exported into the country. No, even let's talk about imported into the country first. That is the game that the Ministry of Health plays with themselves. I will focus more on the numbers of people who are COVID positive, the gains that we're making on COVID, the issue of there's a vaccine in the country and there's a vaccine out of the country. No. That one, the information... No, that information is not reliable.
Okay.
Some two stories here. One is from Mombasa. The Honorable Justice Eric Ogola, sitting at the Mombasa High Court, delivered some landmark ruling and said senators and MPs who are lawyers have been barred from representing government officials facing graft cases. Other than the legislators, state officials who are also practicing law will also not appear for their colleagues equally charged with economic crimes. The judge said it's unfortunate that state officers facing economic crimes are being driven in government vehicles to court and represented by their colleagues. He made the ruling following an application by State Counsel Alexander Muteti seeking to bar Siaya Senator James Orengo from representing Daniel Manduku, the former KPA MD. Granted that the senator is entitled to pursue private gain, what perception does the public get when the accused person who is charged with economic crimes has, as his counsel, a senator, a state officer driven to court in a motor vehicle bought by the public? He said in his view, it's a clear case of conflict of interest when the accused has the senator as his advocate. It is the finding hereof that the continued representation of Manduku by Orengo or any other state officer is against the spirit of Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya for failure to conform to the mandatory provisions of Section 26 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. That one. We have talked about it here, right? When we saw senators going to represent Mike Sonko, when we also saw senators holding brief for various other graft suspects. And the judge is saying clearly, surely. This one, no.
No.
Yep. The second case, Treasury CS Ukur Yatani and the KRA have been sued for introducing VAT on cooking gas. The High Court yesterday heard that the move by the government is unreasonable, with the petitioner citing the harsh times occasioned by COVID-19. Caroline Modoni, in her case, which she says is on behalf of the public, argues that in the event the cost of cooking gas is increased, the ripple effect will rise in cost of living. That is 1 + 1 becoming 2. And CS for the National Treasury, and even the person who collects revenue would be able to add that, wouldn't they?
You would assume.
Yeah, but let's see how that case goes. Final story before you go to the top of the hour.
Okay, so teachers have an issue with their pay rise, and the TSC boss is being quizzed on quorum hitch, as stalled talks on pay rise happens. MPs want to know whether a dysfunctional Teachers Service Commission is to blame for delays to conclude pay rise negotiations and recruit new tutors to bridge a biting shortage. Lawmakers yesterday pressed TSC Chief Executive Nancy Macharia to tell them whether quorum hitches that have rocked the commission have risked the welfare of teachers, including negotiations on a new collective bargaining agreement. Only 2 commissioners have been in office since March 19th. As 7 have retired, the 2 cannot make binding decisions on the 9-member commission and is only required legally constituted with at least half of the members. TSC is yet to start negotiations with unions despite the fact that the 2017-2021 CBA ends on June 30th. Education Committee Chairperson Florence Mutua said without a quorum, the commission is unable to operate.
Okay.
So, things are...
There you go.
Interesting. At the TSC, we need teachers. We can't hire. We can't...
We need teachers. We don't have an employer.
Yeah. There's nobody to hire them. School is opening. Do you
know Achebe got it right, didn't he?
Things fall apart. The center cannot hold.
Our center is holding. Yes.
Actually, our center is holding, but things are still falling apart.
Yeah. Things are just falling. It's just...
Well, the center is holding on to something else. Ask yourself, what is the center holding?
It's everything else is just falling around the center, but the center remains intact.
Hey.
It's still up there.
Telling you.
Coming up to the top of the hour, thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room. In the next hour, we have 2 conversations. One is about Global World Immunization Week, and we'll be talking about vaccines and COVID-19 vaccine distribution, taking a case study of Israel. The Israeli ambassador will be with us shortly. And then after that, we talk about teen pregnancies, and they're calling it the second pandemic. What is happening around the country? These and more conversations right here on Spice FM. We'll be live on KTN Home in the next 1 or 2 hours, and also we live streaming the show online. Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, taking a look at what's happening on our roads this morning. It's slow coming off Mombasa Road, that we know, between the SGR, actually beyond that, at the Weybridge at Mlolongo, then through towards General Motors all the way. Much slower this morning than yesterday, but it's moving, so not too much of an issue there. All right, coming off from Gong Road, a little bit of a slowdown around the city mortuary roundabout, but it's not too crazy either. It looks like traffic will be manageable today. Coming off of Thika Road into the CBD, I think it looks pretty good as we get into town. Use Wangari Maathai Road also to get into CBD. Longer route, but not too painful. Into the CBD should be fine. Take a look at things as they unfold into the next couple of hours. Spice FM KE, talk to us through that should you need to. If you find a trouble spot or a good spot, let us know. Text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation.
2 minutes after 7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to the second hour of the show. We're here until 10 a.m. We begin the hour with the day's proverb.
If you can't resolve your problem in peace, you can't resolve war.
If you can't resolve your problem in peace,
you cannot resolve
war.
It's a Somali proverb.
How apt. It's a Somali proverb.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's about that time, right?
It is.
Okay. Nisao. Ndu?
Yes?
Tell us about World Immunization Week.
Okay, so it didn't start this year. It's a week that's commemorated, year after year, and looking at the importance of immunizing the world's population against certain diseases. And it's been in practice that global citizens are encouraged to get immunized against certain diseases. And we've seen the successes of some of these. Great successes against polio in many European countries. Many, many years ago, we're looking at decades ago, and then the successful immunization drives that took place on the continent of Africa, countries such as Ghana, Nigeria, for polio, and then essentially saw polio being wiped out of these countries as a result of that. And so World Health Organization and other medical bodies taking this extremely seriously and say that there are a number of diseases around the world that can essentially be wiped out if more and more people were immunized from these. And, they're working on others, looking at a malaria vaccine, for example, looking at some of the newer and more difficult diseases to control, HIV and AIDS, looking at an end to this sometime in the future. Discussions are being had. What we're dealing with today with COVID-19, vaccines are already there. And the message has been to make people safe, have people being safe by getting these vaccinations done. And it has been proven over and over again that if the more people you vaccinate, the higher your chances of eliminating the disease from the world for good. So it's not a matter of just get the vaccine because, we'd like to see if you can get well. But the more and more people are immunized from this, are able to gain and strengthen immunity, the higher the chances of removing these vaccines from existence completely.
The virus.
These diseases rather, from existence completely. So this week is used as commemoration, reminding people of how you can actually be kept safe by being inoculated from these diseases. So this is the week that is commemorated as the final week of April every year, and we're coming to the tail end of it, but messages being sent around the world about the importance.
Yeah. So focusing on COVID and the
yes,
global COVID vaccination drive, right? We're looking at the success stories from various countries. Israel is up there.
Yes.
In terms of even the percentage of the population that has been vaccinated, and that is receiving both doses, the complete dosage of the vaccine, over 50%.
Yeah, I think
by Monday.
The most recent number we saw was 55.3% of the population having been vaccinated. And then also the first time in 10 months that we saw Israel did not report a COVID-19 death. So there's certain things that are being done. On one side, the vaccination end of things. On the other side, the measures that they put in place to really take care of the population when it comes to COVID and how strict they've been on some of these measures, instituting lockdowns, curfews here and there. But it seems to be working and working well.
So why don't you hear the story and the experiences from the horse's mouth? Israeli ambassador to Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi and Seychelles, His Excellency Oded Joseph, joins us on the line again. Good morning, Your Excellency.
Good morning, guys. I'm so happy and pleased to be hosted again in Situation Room. How are you?
Good morning. Fine, thank you.
Thank you for accepting our invitation.
I thank you.
Yes.
Oded, a lot has happened since the last time we spoke in terms of looking at the curve, the spread of COVID-19 around the world, wave after wave, some countries going through some tough waves, countries such as yours getting to a point where you have vaccinated so many people. Just tell us about the vaccination drive so far, the latest numbers in terms of vaccination, the latest numbers in terms of those that have tested positive for COVID or hospitalization and such?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, Israel did begin a very, very bold campaign of giving the vaccines to its population. And I'm proud and happy to say that at the moment, the exact figures today are that 62% of the Israeli population is already given the vaccine, the 2 shots of the vaccine. This is 62% from the total population. If you take into consideration the age that is eligible to get the vaccines, we're talking about maybe 75, 80% of our population that received the vaccines. So that has been a very bold campaign. And I'm happy to say that today, when you go to and visit Israel, things have opened up. And this is really due to this large amount of the Israeli population that got the vaccine.
In terms of how to, because I think that there's so many lessons here that can be learned. What exactly was done to make this possible? There's some countries who we're looking at today have to give a payment incentive to their citizens to come out and get vaccinated. There are other countries who just don't have enough in terms of resources to be able to vaccinate 10% of the population. What exactly would you say was done or put in place to make this possible?
Well, I think first and foremost is the recognition of how serious this pandemic is. And Israel has, like every other country, was very much challenged by this pandemic. The number of deaths of Israelis is 6,361 deaths. We are placed 61 in the world in terms of deaths per million people. We are number 14 in the number of positive cases per million of the population. So we have suffered from this pandemic very, very seriously. And I think first and foremost, we recognize how important it is to act quickly. I think what worked for Israel is the 3 factors. First is that, as I said, our leadership recognized the importance of tackling this challenge. And we have purchased mainly Pfizer vaccine even before it was approved by the FDA. It was shipped to Israel. We took a calculated risk. So the minute the FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine, we had enough vaccines to start giving and beginning this bold campaign of giving vaccines to our population. So number 1 is acting very fast and making sure we have enough vaccine on time. Number 2, I think Israel is lucky to have, even before its independence, a very efficient and effective public health system. This includes various factors with it. 1, we have a law that compulsory health insurance is needed for every citizen. So there's no citizen in Israel that doesn't have a compulsory health insurance. Number 2 is that the system is digitized. Everything is, from the day you were born, you're getting this sort of a smart card with all the medical information about you. So the digitized information, having a knowledge by 4 operators, health operators, having all the information needed about its population allowed us to have a very effective campaign. And I think factor number 3 is that Israel, with all due respect, we're a small country. Our population is only 9 million, so in a very small area. So controlling and giving this campaign of vaccination or exercising a lockdown is much more effective and much more efficient with a smaller population and a smaller area. So it's acting fast, a very effective and efficient public health system, and us being not such a big country with not such a big population.
What has Israel done to assist its neighbors in also attaining the sort of efficacious way of dealing with with COVID-19? Is there any program, process that Israel has done? I'm looking at this from the perspective of, if you have neighbors who you interact with and they aren't looked after or they're not able to, then your citizens are also in danger.
Well, absolutely. We have our immediate neighbors are our Palestinian neighbors and the countries that are surrounding us. We have been facilitating whatever is needed in order for them also to receive the right amount of vaccines. We cannot buy, as part of our agreement with Pfizer and Moderna, we cannot export our vaccines. But those, for example, Palestinians who work in Israel receive vaccine from the government of Israel. So we are cooperating with the health authorities of the Palestinian Authority. We are facilitating whatever is needed in order to make sure that vaccines are being brought to the areas of the Palestinian territories. And as I said, we're also giving vaccines to Palestinians that are working in Israel.
Okay. Apart from taking what you refer to as a calculated risk in purchasing the Pfizer vaccine, did Israel in any way participate in funding the process of development of this particular vaccine?
Yes, we actually have been. We have been contributing also to the research that has been done in abroad, and also we are very, very much focused on trying to develop our own vaccine to be allowed to be transported in a much easier manner. So I think absolutely yes, we are trying. We are part of this worldwide effort to see how we could curb this pandemic.
Well, that leads me to my next question. Has Israel processed or thought of perhaps producing their own vaccine?
Yes, I just mentioned that we are trying. We're trying to develop our own vaccines in our own research institutions. Naturally, the challenge is now to try to find those vaccines that could give an answer to many of the mutations that have been developed. And I think the other challenge is how do you create those a vaccine that is being able to be transported rather easily. Because at the moment, at least the Pfizer vaccine has to, in order to transport it, you truly need to make sure that it's being held in a very, very extreme and delicate circumstances and conditions. So that is a big challenge, and we are trying to develop a vaccine that will be much easier to handle.
In looking at how it is that we take cognizance of this particular pandemic, and we look at people whom we partner with, like, let me give an example of a country that you know well called Kenya, okay? When you consider the relationship that Israel has had with Kenya, and you look at something that is a threat to everyone on this planet, like the COVID-19, are there steps or are there processes of thinking that countries like yours would have when it comes to helping them with a situation like this, when it comes to also ensuring that they have sufficient support to get their citizens vaccinated?
I think there are at least three venues that we are trying to develop a cooperation between Israel and Kenya. And I think it's truly helping each other. This is a worldwide challenge. So I think the first and the very basic venue is talking to each other, sharing experiences, sharing views, sharing practices, how to deal with this pandemic. And we are developing this type of discussion between our public health experts. The second, which is slightly more complicated, but still a venue that we are looking at how we could develop it, that is cooperation in research. And last but not least is when one has the ability to stand and to extend this assistance in terms of PPEs or in terms of hopefully one day also vaccines. I think this is something that these are three venues we're looking at in terms of our cooperation with Kenya, trying to curb together this challenge.
One of the things that the development of the vaccines has shown is that it's very possible for the world to come together and fight together for something. If you look at the speed with which the development, the research, and up to development of the vaccine took place, if you look at the funding, governments setting aside money, positive things. But currently now, the world is also looking at the very ugly and negative side of such action. This is where the rich versus poor conversation starts coming up, and vaccine nationalism. Countries being accused of hoarding amounts of vaccine that would go to their population 3 times or 4 times over, while poorer countries like those in Africa and other parts of the world don't have access to a single vial of vaccine. What is it that you think Israel could do or is doing in terms of bringing up that conversation to the fore? You live in a region where you also, yes, have neighbors who are not as well endowed economically as you are. How do you deal with that?
Well, first, let me just say that I totally agree with you. There couldn't be a justification for having an uneven distribution of the vaccine. This is a worldwide challenge. This is a pandemic that we all suffer from. So the only way to curb this is really by making sure that all the population around the world deals with this in an effective and efficient manner, and vaccines is definitely one of the main ways. I think it will be easier for Israel to significantly contribute to this once we hope to have our own vaccines. And that would enable us not only to make sure that the production is enough for the local Israeli population, but maybe to expand it to other places in the world. As long as we are dependent ourselves in vaccines that we purchase from abroad, there are certain agreements of what we could do with the vaccines. We're not able to export them. But I think the bottom line is, I totally agree with you. The pandemic has to be challenged worldwide, and it has to be challenged and dealt with in an effective manner and in a way that everyone has the same right to get what's needed in order to overcome this challenge.
I want to ask a philosophical question here. I mean, there's what we're saying is something that we all understand, and at least I hope it's understood by all. But at what point does one stop or start looking after the interest of their own population and people, and at what point do they then consider the obligation of helping others a priority?
Wow, philosophical questions at 7 o'clock in the morning is always almost as challenging as overcoming the pandemic. But I think it has to be done in a parallel manner. Naturally, every government has its immediate responsibility to take care of its own population. I think this is only natural, that you first and foremost, it's your responsibility. That's why we elect our governments, and that's what we expect them to do. And in parallel, you have to make sure that you find the ways and the time to cooperate with your friends, with your neighbors, with the other countries in the world in order to fight the pandemic. So I think my answer is really it has to be done in a parallel manner. But also, you must understand that the Israeli government or any other government could not direct other countries what to do. We could cooperate, we could discuss, we could consult, but the authority of a government is only on its own population. So it's not only a matter of just the mandate and expectation that each government will take first and foremost care of its own population, but it's also the mandate of what it's able to do, what it's allowed to do.
That is true, Your Excellency.
How was this answer for a 7 o'clock in the morning philosophical question?
You've done very well.
Thank you so much. This is why I like to be hosted by you guys.
That is true, Your Excellency. But the reality of the geopolitical sphere that we live in is that, yes, you can't direct a country, but there's this subtle issue of influence. And it doesn't matter which country one belongs to, even it doesn't matter how friendly one is, but there's always the interplay of influence and how it can be balanced. Now, let me explain why I'm saying this. One of Israel's greatest industries is high technology. Okay? That's aside from agriculture, tourism. Now, one of the things that Kenya could use in bucket loads is an infusion of that high technology, because with the high technology, as you say correctly, you at birth, an Israeli child has their details at one particular spot, and it makes it easy when you want to roll out the sort of rollout that COVID has necessitated. The question, has Israel had any discussions? Or if it's top secret and we shouldn't discuss it, you will let me know. But have we as Kenya received, or has Israel offered support in that particular area to Kenya?
If you're talking about generally, operating in the field of high tech and
yes.
ICT, naturally we have a great cooperation with Kenya. We want to develop it and to reach higher ends in this regard. We could do much more, but we are already cooperating with Kenya, whether it's on a business-to-business level, and of course also between the governments. I think we could do much more in terms of research. And again, the potential is much higher than what we're doing in practice. But it is a part of our priority. I think it's also the priority of the government of Kenya. And as an ambassador, that's definitely one of the areas where we are looking at how we could do more together. Just to give an example, very, very soon on the 10th of May, with your new and only smart city that you're developing here in Kenya, Konza Technopolis, we will be holding a Shark Tank whereby Israeli startups together with Kenyan startups would be introduced to the challenges of the smart city in smart transportation and smart access and security of the smart city. We would be challenged by Konza Technopolis on what this city wants to develop. And as I said, young creators with innovative minds and with a lot of imagination will be together trying to give answers to some of those challenges. Israeli startups alongside with Kenyan startups. So this is just one example. As I said, we could and we should do much more in terms of cooperation in high tech and innovation.
Are we looking at a world after COVID? Lessons to be learned from COVID, but are we at the point where you're looking at these partnerships and relations after COVID and all that it has brought with it? Important to do so at this point, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, we truly want to be in that position already of being post-COVID. Let us be there as soon as we can. But I think it did affect the way it impact or the way that we cooperate with other countries. Naturally, much more emphasis now being done in the field of health and research and innovation. So what we're trying to do is to develop these mechanisms of enhancing the cooperation exactly in these fields.
Ambassador Oded Joseph, we thank you very much again for speaking to us this morning, early morning. Hope to invite you again in the studio soon. I know you've already gotten your 2 doses of COVID vaccine. So
that's true.
Okay.
That's true. We were lucky also as a diplomatic missions of Israel around the world. We were sent specifically to get the vaccines to Israel. So all the staff of the embassy and their families were sent with special planes to Israel twice to get to the 2 vaccines. So yes. We got the vaccines, and we're trying to, like everyone else, to get back to normal life as much as possible.
Does this include the Kenyan staff working at the Israeli embassy?
Well, as I said earlier, unfortunately, we cannot export the vaccine.
Right.
And so we are now looking at how we could take also care of the local staff at the embassy with the Kenyan authorities. Naturally, this is something that is high on our priority.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Speak to you again soon.
Thank you. Have a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you.
25 minutes past 7, time for us to take a break on SpiceFM, KTN Home and online. As we do that, GenerationNextChallenge.com. Have you registered your child for this? They get to learn math, computer science, computational skills, connecting real math to real life. What happens when they log on to this challenge? They earn polycoins. Polycoins measure each student's personalized learning journey as they progress through the challenge. Students can also upgrade to premium in the next challenge. Certificates, badges, and leaderboards. The Challenge XP unlocks badges in math, computer science, and robotics. Certificates show each student's achievement in earning badges. XP is used to determine the challenge leaderboard. And then there is the Global Innovation Challenge scholarships, where students are selected for leaderboards also based on their innovative solutions to SDGs. The top 25 students per grade will receive a scholarship for the Global Innovation Challenge. Very exciting thing for your children to be doing during this holiday season. GenerationNextChallenge.com. We'll be back shortly.
All right, so we're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. A sprinkle in some parts at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 17. Rain showers in Nyeri at 16, highs of 24, lows of 15. It's sunny in Nakuru at 15, highs of 24. 24 will also be the high in Eldoret, where it's partly sunny at 16. 29 the high in Kisumu, light rain at 20 at the moment. We are looking at Kakamega, and it's partly sunny at 16, highs of 27 and lows of 15. 25 will be the low in Mombasa. Rain showers right now as well at 27. It's also raining in Malindi at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 26. Light rain in Kampala at 20, highs of 27 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam continues to rain at 26, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Clear conditions in Johannesburg at 12, highs of 23. And we'll see highs of 33, where it's mostly clear in Lagos at 25. And it's raining in Kinshasa at 23, highs of 32 and lows of 24. So it's another day where public service vehicles that would ordinarily load and drop off at railways will be loading and dropping off at the Green Park Terminal at least until 9 o'clock. That's happening for the next 2 weeks, remember, guys. So as you're getting in and out of the city, if you're picking up a vehicle where you would normally pick it up at railways, you need to go to the former Luna Park, which is now the Green Park Terminal. It's until 9 o'clock, and then for the next 2 weeks for us to see how this we will be able to transition. All right? It's going to cause some traffic for sure and some hiccups here and there, but let's see how that opens up. Today should be the last day of this road closure between the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and the Bunyala Road roundabout. Okay? So let's see what it looks like tomorrow, if that actually does open up. But for now, we're going to have to sit through that traffic. Let's take a look and see what it looks like in traffic hour in the next half an hour. But for now, it doesn't look too bad from most parts. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there.
Twenty-nine minutes to 8 o'clock. This conversation continues on Spice FM, KTN Home and online. In the room every morning is CT Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif. It is the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM. 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu. We are in Nakuru, 96.0. In Eldoret, 96.7, Nyeri, 90.9, and Malindi is 97.7. So as we continue the conversation out of that, let's now switch over into teenage pregnancies in the country, the shadow pandemic. We saw the number of, when schools reopened, the number of children that went back to school and those that did not go back to school, several thousands. Many of them were for various reasons, but there were those that did not go back to school because they had become mothers. There were those that still went back to school, but they had become mothers. Now, remember, we're talking about young children going back to school, teenagers. The issue of teen pregnancies at the height of the pandemic last year was highlighted when the numbers started coming out of the counties and saying, okay, how many people, how many young children are reporting for antenatal care in hospitals and health centers? And it became a very big conversation. So it's been called a shadow pandemic. Do you agree?
Well, I don't know if it. Well, I think it's coming out of the shadows now. Where when it was a shadow pandemic is when really nobody knew or nobody chose to accept what was really going on, because it's not an easy thing. When you have girls between the ages of 11 and 19 getting pregnant in the hundreds of thousands around the country.
Yep.
It's not something that you take and welcome with open arms. And that's why I think we saw a lot of the denying that came out also from many counties that this could not be the true number. In my opinion, maybe there is actually a higher number of this in the country. So it is coming out of the shadows. It's not welcome for a lot of parents. But then also we have to realize that some of these teenage pregnancies that we are seeing had been happening even before COVID. The things that we hear about what happened in some notorious counties, like we heard from Haki Africa the other day, many young girls getting pregnant because they cannot afford transport. And they speak to the border riders, help me out here. And it turns out to be a sexual relationship. These young girls are getting pregnant over and over and over again. This is happening, or rather this story can be replicated across counties across the country. So it's coming out of the shadows, and I think it's front and center. It's screaming loudly. And I think it's about time we heeded it. And there are many reasons why young girls are getting pregnant. It's not just because people are being promiscuous. And it's not just for economic circumstances. Again, it's not just because people are curious and they have time on their hands. It's a lot of reasons why this is happening. It's not in the shadows anymore.
The pregnancies are just manifestations of sexual activity. And we have danced around the subject of sex and among young people, sex among adolescents, sex among people who are not even adolescents. We've danced around it. It's something that we have not sought or wanted to address directly. And the pregnancy that we're now speaking of, the manifestation of that sex is now hitting us in the face directly. Because for it to take place, take of any permeation that you want, at the end of the day, very many of these activities were not coerced, they were not forced. Some of it was sought after, some of it were consensual. Now, until and unless we are willing to actually look at sex and discuss sex directly and talk about it openly, this situation, COVID has simply brought it to the fore and given it a multiplicity. But it is not going to come to an end. No. And you see, these are conversations we're having among ourselves adults. What do these young people who we are referring to as victims think about this situation? Not pregnancy. What do they think about sex? What is their idea? Because if you don't understand this, preventing pregnancies will be a near impossibility. Because remember, at the heart of this discussion, young girls, they're not having sex with themselves. They're having sex with men, boys, males.
And this is the thing. Say for the Immaculate Conception, the only thing that is going to get you in a state of pregnancy is sex. So if you're not discussing it, then we have a problem. Absolutely. We can't run away from it. And I think the only thing that's going to keep it under covers is not discussing it. And then it will continue to lurk in the shadows and then come out one day and bite us in the face. It's what is happening now.
So sex education.
It's absolutely necessary, and not in the way in which it was. I will never forget when I was 11 years old and just getting towards ages of puberty, and one of the aunties there told me something about, yes, now what will happen is if you look at a boy, you will get pregnant. I was confused. I don't. Some of these things, these are some of the lessons that are being passed on to young girls. It is not true, and it confuses them completely. You'll be surprised at the number of girls who do not know what will happen as a result of sexual activities today. Do not know
of looking at boys.
Who do not know.
And
it's dangerous.
That whole conversation about sex education, about just basically children having access to reproductive health services, it's a hot potato. Remember, Senator Susan Keheka has a bill. And during discussion and public participation about this bill, this whole matter again came up. So we have, on the one hand, there's the issue of teen pregnancies. There's the community's immediate reaction of looking at teenage pregnancies from sexual predators who are impregnating our young girls. And it's not always the case.
No.
Then there's the other issue of then how do we avoid this? How do we bring this conversation to the fore? Not amongst the adults, but even with the children. But now that's where that's where the chain ends.
Having a discussion about sex with young people is a problem adults have.
Yes.
It is clear that their children, their parents had a problem with having this same discussion. Now, this is not really something that we want children to keep inheriting, because the end result of that, the ignorance that arises from this absence of conversation, is what we're seeing now.
Yep.
And remember, we're talking about pregnancies. Are we talking about diseases that are also passed on?
We're not even talking about diseases. We're not even talking about diseases. We're just talking about pregnancy. As in, you know how we're saying there are many things that can result from having sex. The only thing that can result, the only thing from sex that can result, okay, let me just go back.
Start again.
Pregnancy, the only way you can get pregnant is by having sex.
Well, it's not really the only way, but carry on. The predominant way in which you can actually get pregnant is by having
the sexual act, sexual activity is what will result in pregnancy.
Yes.
Is what will result in pregnancy.
Yes.
Now, with sex comes many other things. Pregnancy, sexually transmitted diseases, 1, 2, 3. There are very many other things that can come about. But what we're talking about now is that we're not talking about tens, hundreds of thousands of girls in the country pregnant at a young age, between the ages of 11 and 19. It's a problem. Is it a pandemic? I would say yes, it is. It is. We have to have the conversation. The conversation needs to be had. And I'm not saying in raunchy ways and I think that is the fear, that a lot of people or a lot of parents may feel that their children would become promiscuous if they don't have the conversation. But not having the conversation presents a higher degree of danger than having it does.
The degree and the discussion of promiscuity is an excuse. Most people are uncomfortable discussing sex.
Yeah, even amongst adults.
Period. Just uncomfortable. Even among couples who are married.
To each other.
Yes. It is not a discussion that people find easy.
So you're an expert in this city.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm not.
Not on conversations around sex, but on packaging information. Right?
That I am.
How do you package this conversation between parents and their children about sex that addresses those many concerns, because those are valid and legitimate concerns? You don't want to talk about this particular act with your child and you appear to be endorsing the act.
How do you talk about sex and not demonize it? Because when people talk about sex, the one thing they do is they demonize it.
You demonize it. Because you're trying to avoid endorsing it.
Yes.
So by trying to avoid endorsing it, you now come to the extreme, you demonize it.
The word that I'm going to use here, we catastrophize it. Okay?
Yes.
So instead of looking at it as something that you can actually discuss in a way that gives it a balanced perspective, and the balanced perspective it actually deserves and needs to have, it's our own perceptions and fears and inhibitions and issues that take control of the conversation. It's the same conversation, this at a lesser, much lesser level with alcohol. When people have a discussion about alcohol, you start with demonizing it and then you move in either direction of having demonized it. And yet, really, the conversation ought to be a lot more balanced. And it isn't. Now, you asked me, how do you do it?
Yes.
Let me tell you, you do it over a long period of time, okay? And carefully. And you have to associate it with something that people can easily accommodate. You cannot discuss sex and not discuss life in its entirety. You cannot discuss sex and you do not talk about life and its continuity.
I read a study that was done, here in Kenya just a couple of years ago. And if we're looking at spreading this information, say for young girls and even young boys who attended peer groups, sessions like that, and across areas, whether it was urban or rural, this passing on of information doesn't happen. I'm not saying that it happens in a little bit here and there. I'm saying it does not happen. You're thrown to the wolves. You figure it out for yourself along the way. For a lot of folks, they're not thinking about having this conversation because they're thinking about other things. Livelihoods, because if we look at the highest, or these high percentages of pregnant girls that we are seeing in the country so far, it is spread more into the rural areas. People are not having these conversations, and the answers that they gave when asked is because, number one, it is not on their priority list. They have other things that they're thinking about and other things that are taking up their attention and their time in terms of what they need to do. They figured it out on their own and they ended up with children. It doesn't come up for discussion. They want to send the children to school, and they pass and then we move on. These are the reasons that parents are giving as per what is going on in their situation.
Ask a simple question. How many parents actually sit and have conversations with their children?
They
Forget sex. Just
anything. How are you doing? Even conversation of how you've done today.
Eric asked me a question, and Eric, the response that I would give to your question is this. You cannot talk about sex, pregnancies among young girls or young people without talking to the young people. The discussions we have are discussions among adults discussing things happening to young people. You start by finding out from these very, very young people, all those troublesome questions that you have, their relationship with their parents or people who are older, their views of sex, their understanding of pregnancy. The conversation begins with young people. If you want a solution for young people, you talk to them. They actually understand, and they're the ones who will tell you what it is that ought to be done. They will tell you. Now, this idea that you know better, yes, you may, but you as an adult do not know better than a young person about sex and the ideas of sex. They do. You don't. You know, we had this discussion a while back with regards to not just young people, but with adults. Remember, we had this discussion about voting. It was a fairly interesting discussion that we had here. There's an understanding among people who call themselves experts that they understand. What they fail to understand, you may be some sort of expert on a particular subject, but you are not an expert in what the other person thinks they are. You are not an expert in what makes them make the decisions that they make. They are. So if you want to understand why they make those decisions, for heaven's sake, ask them. Find out from them. Let them be part and parcel of this conversation so that they can tell you, so that when you then bring your expertise is based on something that is known, something that is finite, something that you've been told, something that you can cross-check and determine. But it can't be that it all revolves around this subject that you studied for the longest time and the subject that you're considered to be an expert in. Yes, that's your expertise in that subject. But in the lives of these people, they are the experts.
I mean, I think there's definitely something wrong, though, whichever way you choose to look at it. Because we can't say that almost the close to 500,000 girls around the country who have gotten pregnant in the last 1 year have done it with the desire to, have gotten pregnant because they wanted to have children. Between the ages of 11 and 19, they didn't. They didn't want to have children. And in that whole pot, you have those who had no idea what was going on. You'd be surprised, but yes, have no idea what is going on physiologically, have not been taught anything about this whatsoever, and then have to deal with that on their own. So, I mean, it really, and then those who do know, those who may have gotten into trouble, those who may have been sexually abused, those who had to make a swap for some kind of economic advantage and giving up their bodies, that kind of thing, across board. So I think that even as we look at this, there's a need to separate the issues. But over and above all of this, I think it is absolutely necessary to share the information, to give the education. Because what you do is then you're allowing people throughout their existence to make informed choices. You can't do that without. If they don't have the education, if they don't have the information, where are they going to? If we've already established that parents are not talking to their children, if we've already experienced or we've established that relationship does not exist and it needs to start being cultivated, it's going to take time to do that. So does the education have to come from maybe a centralized point or invested in places where they are going to learn other things anyway? Then absolutely. Should it be in school in a manner that is true, that is representative of the true situation? Absolutely. It needs to be done. You cannot have this. Children giving birth to children is what we have today. Children raising children. Children who've not reached maturity are bringing children up. That's what we have. We've had conversations here just last week from a judge of the High Court telling us about sexual abuse and what happens. And you say a child someone who's 18, somebody who's even 20, still not being able to understand the rigors of an adult life. And then we have children who are almost half that age, having children, getting pregnant and having children. What are we doing? Are we not compounding an already difficult situation? Is it time that we all came together and said, what can we do about this? Can we have these honest and open conversations? The light needs to come on, and we need to keep it on.
We're not comfortable having discussions, so we'll find excuses for not having the discussions. And the excuses just get more and more elaborate with time. But the truth is, there are certain things that we do not want to face. They are uncomfortable, and we would rather look for other reasons as to why we're doing what we're doing. You see, the truth by its very nature is often inconvenient. But unfortunately, when it involves children, your children, the children your children play with, there is a reality that you really don't have a choice. It is better that you face that reality. It will avert very many disasters that are probably awaiting you than waiting for those disasters to confront you. And then you start thinking and figuring ways of resolving the conflict that has now brought itself to your very doorstep.
As we talk about all this, I think there's a role of leadership. Leadership, it could start from civil society organizations and community leaders. How do they package the confirmation or the campaign for sex education? And then how do they approach those who have serious concerns about sex education? And don't just look at them as, oh, you people are religious leaders and you have this moral high ground that you have taken. How do you approach them? How do you sit down with them and have the conversation that there is need? Even agreeing, we can start from this level, see the successes and the failures and learn from it before we, step it up to this second level. And I think that is what is lacking in our society so far. We see a legislator coming up with a bill. We see engagement on this bill. We see serious pushback from those who are against this. We call them traditionalists. We call them religious leaders. We call them all manner of things. But do we actually engage them? Because they are opinion leaders. They are influencers in the community. And unless those influencers get on board, this conversation will not move from where it is. And it's a back and forth. It's a demonization of the whole idea of sex education.
I think here, the social and community connotations that it has, I think need to be brought out, let's like you're saying, and rung out more clearly. Because here, before we even get to one of our favorite pastimes of saying government should do, I don't think we should go in that direction just yet. I mean, we can institutionalize that need for education, true, at a school level, right? But communities where families operate, talking to each other, I think it's absolutely necessary to start getting comfortable about those conversations, whereby you have leaders who lead on a social platform. You have leaders, you talk about so many things. You have things like community banking. You have things like community education. You have things like community markets. This is something that should happen. Growing up, and you can attest to it, you are misbehaving in your area. It's not just your parents who are going to discipline you. There are others who come in and play that role as well. And I think that can actually be something that can play here. And I don't think we should run away from that. Community has a huge role to play here, I think.
If I give an example, Eric, can I give an example?
Yes, go ahead.
One of the things that we looked at when we were trying to get the message of what HIV was, what it does, and how common it was among very many people. And I'm taking this from what you said about leaders. We realize that if you do not rope in religious leaders, you are losing a very key platform in which that message can actually be passed on. And we found also that among the men of the cloth, there were many people who are suffering from the infection, couldn't speak about because of the stigma, their families. The reality that was represented in other parts of the community were being represented in this, because these are also members of the community. Now remember, if somebody is a man of the cloth and you're HIV positive, it gets really tricky.
Nobody's asking you whether you pricked your finger on a needle.
It's getting really, or maybe you had a haircut and you were shaving. No. Or you were transfused and something. You see? Now the stigma involved around it. Now, we found the discussions specifically that looking for anyone, whether it is an opinion leader in a community, whether it's a religious leader, whether it's a youth leader, whether it's a civic leader, administrative leader, anything, anyone, any position that you could refer to as leadership, we found the need to get these people and to find a forum. And the champions in these forums we found were people who were already in that forum. Like you'd find somebody who is already a man of the cloth or a person of the cloth talking with other and making sure that this topic is something they discuss, because these are people who even have their own gatherings, their own caucuses.
Exactly.
Yes. So within their caucuses, you discuss
discuss
talked
these
about
things.
precisely.
And within that caucus, each individual has somewhere where they actually go and preside over, right? Or at least provide some kind of leadership for. So we're talking about this being a pandemic. This is something, removing the medical side of it or the biological side of it, there's something that actually can be done today to begin to sort this out. For instance,
instead of grown-ups having their grown-up views and talking to young people about their grown-up perspectives, have young people talking to other young people.
About their realities, not their perspectives.
Just start there.
About their realities.
Yes, somebody who had a child when they're young, that would be a perfect ambassador. They can talk to you about what they went through. Somebody who had some disease, somebody who has avoided sex, meaning look at the entire spectrum of young people, what they represent, male, female, whatever their interest. They are the best people to start sending this message, because young people would resonate with the message. Imagine me with my grey beard going to talk to a group of young people.
I'm imagining.
They will respectfully listen, and then after that ask, what on earth, that this old person doesn't have time? Don't they have other things to do with their time? What on earth are they talking to us about, and they don't even understand? A younger person, on the other hand, they would be able to resonate and feel, actually, I'm okay. And they could talk, ask questions, and have discussions based on something that they all can agree to understand. There's a place where parents come in. There's a role where older members of society come in. But there's a perfect role for these changes. You really have to bring in young people and make them an integral part of finding a solution to this.
They have to be. They have to participate in this conversation. And then even those who have various misgivings about this conversation need to be brought on board. And I think the moment we start from that, the moment we start from having, first of all the adults aligned, bringing the young people on board is not going to be as difficult.
No, it isn't.
As long as there is opposition from their parents, their church leaders, their elders, my friend.
You know, most Kenyans have a religious affiliation or inclination.
Yeah.
And you are spot on in saying, perhaps if this discussion can be had with these religious leaders, so that they make it part and parcel of their messaging within the community of people who actually subscribe to their faith or the faith that they represent. People of faith tend to be there's a listening ear that is accorded them that other people are not accorded. Like if a politician spoke about it, I personally tell them to shut up, because
but when someone else talks,
if it's a religious leader, I would keep quiet. I'll give them a bit of time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Time for us to take a break. 4 minutes to 8 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. Remember, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Yes, it's that website by the Standard Group that allows you to see the number of jobs that have been advertised from around the country. You log in there and you subscribe to alerts from jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. You will receive SMS alerts or alerts on your email whenever a job that is aligned to you is advertised. There are very many jobs that have been advertised there so far. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. The conversation continues shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Top of the hour. So the whole issue of teenage pregnancies and whether it's a, what are we calling it? Shadow pandemic. whether there are people who actually agree with those who are calling it a shadow pandemic, what steps need to be taken to address this particular issue. Because truth be told, when a young person, a young girl at the age of 15, 14 becomes a parent at that age, they're starting too early. And it means something. It means that either the education has been disrupted. It means that they have got to start being an adult at that early age in this day and time. I mean, it's not in the 50s and 40s. It may have been the norm. In this day and age, it can't be the norm. So something else needs to happen to be addressed in this particular matter. We'll want to hear what you think about this. How can the issue of teenage pregnancies be addressed once and for all? What best practices would there be in terms of rolling out programs and policies to address the issue of teen pregnancies? That's the conversation that we want to have, and we'll continue with SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can post your comment. In the next hour, we'll also try and have a conversation around agriculture, dairy production especially. But we have been having some technical challenges, so we may not be able to have our guest on the show, but we will see what to do, okay? This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. We're live on Spice FM every weekday morning. We're also live on KTN Home at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And the conversation also goes live on our live stream, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It's now 8 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, just a reminder that you still, if you're a public service vehicle this morning, you're going towards Green Park Terminal. You are not going to alight at railways, at least until 9 o'clock. Also, to pick up your vehicle, you need to go to the Green Park Terminus. You can't do that from railways, at least until 9 o'clock. We're going to see how this runs through the next couple of weeks. NMS will tell us if we're going to go permanently to the Green Park Terminal and railways becomes something else. All right? Getting from Mombasa Road into the city and moving, not too much of an issue right now. We'll probably see heightened traffic then from 8:30, between 8:30 and 10. It looks like that's the pattern nowadays, but we'll wait and see. The Southern Bypass looking pretty good. The ICD route headed out towards Southern Bypass as well. Give you some good reprieve getting into the city. And you should be all right. Coming off of Thika Road towards Ngara, out towards the Globe Cinema overpass also looks pretty good, guys. Not too much of an issue. Let's talk in a bit, shall we? Spice MKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The biggest conversation continues. Well, we are live everywhere, Spice FM, KTN Home, online. As we begin this hour, CT Muga, today's proverb.
You can't resolve your problem. Let me start again. If you can't resolve your problem in peace, you cannot resolve war.
If you cannot resolve your problem in peace, you cannot resolve war.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from Somalia.
From Somalia.
Okay. Poignant. Very, very. So, as we continue this conversation, we'll shortly be switching over to conversation about economics of dairy farming in Kenya. This is AgriTalk. But before we do that, there's a couple of comments that we are seeing on the conversation we were having earlier on teenage pregnancies. Somebody saying that the media has also contributed to the issue of teenage pregnancies.
Well, yeah, in terms of what is aired on.
Because of content.
Yeah, because of content. And then what young people are consuming on TV, then this then leads towards any kind of sexual behavior or, promiscuity. But I don't know if it has anything to do with pregnancy versus morals. I mean, because there's a whole thing that we can put in there. I think there are very many fine lines that need to be separated here. But the truth of the matter being that young girls are getting pregnant for lack of knowledge, getting pregnant for economic reasons, getting pregnant, very, very, very few cases, minute percentage of those who actually want to at that age. But,
I have difficulties commenting on that particular comment that was made because without sounding like I am defending the media, but I will say this, it's a point well made because indeed the media does play a significant role in influencing people. But I would also like to add that we should also learn to look at certain issues such as this very thorny, touchy and sensitive one a little more holistically and consider what other influences, because it is not just one thing.
No, it isn't.
Yes.
It isn't.
I think the point is being made here, and if you look at it broadly, what the caller is, the listener is talking about is access to information. One of the greater tools that is giving these children access to information is what they consume on the media. So it's not the only radio, TV. It's also internet. It's also how else are they consuming information and at what age? How is that information being controlled or being censored, right? How is it being censored and being controlled? What is it that an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old is consuming or they have access to versus what is it that a 22-year-old or 23-year-old has access to? You'll find in many cases they have access to the same information.
They do.
With the same openness.
They do.
So it contributes now to them looking at it and thinking, oh, this is the way of the life. This is the way of life. This is normal.
But it's a tricky balance, really.
Yeah.
It's a genuinely tricky balance. Because then what do we do? The information is readily available there, okay? And you as a parent, you as an older person may feel that you have the power to censure, you have the power to restrict. But what makes you think you are the only source or you are the only avenue through which the child can actually get that information?
But think about it. When you were, even as a child, a younger human, when somebody told you no, without adding a rider to it as the reasons as to why, what did you want? More than anything.
The complete opposite.
Absolutely. You wanted to know this thing that they said no and they've not told me why.
Why?
I must know, number one, I must know what is inside. I must know what it does. You have, your curiosity itch was to the nth degree because you wanted to find out. But I also found out that when my father specifically would say no, and this is the reason why I'm telling you 1, 2, 3, I'm done. I'm not even interested because you've given me the explanation, you've given me the reason behind.
Was he giving you the actual reason, or was he giving you what he, at that point, you could comprehend?
No, I'm not saying that. Not that. I would be able to no, not for everything, of course. And it was not everything. There were some things he would absolutely just say, no, forget it. At that point, he was not giving me the reason.
Nothing.
No,
I've said no.
Daddy has spoken.
But yes, but there were some things that he said, and this is the reason why I would want you to do it. I would not be interested. But I'm telling you, even the things that I found out about that I was not supposed to, I found out because they were not. I wanted to know, and I wanted to know. And there's a saying in Swahili, I never get it right, but something about, if a child asks for
mtoto akililia wembe.
Yes,
mpe.
Exactly. You give it to them and they'll find it. But on the other hand, if you don't give that information, they will find a way to find it. And unfortunately, what we're talking about in this case is that you give them that information, they're probably, in a way in which you would give them to, they're probably not ready to consume it.
Okay.
All right. We'll continue this conversation hopefully tomorrow and have our guest who we were not able to have in the previous hour. This is Anastasia Olemba from the Plan International. Right now, let's talk Agri-Talk, promoting discourse on agriculture, food security, and agribusiness. We have so far talked about, in the next hour we'll be talking about tea, we have talked about coffee, we've talked about livestock farming, we've talked about meat. Let's talk about milk. The economics of dairy farming in Kenya. One of the things that you know for very many years, like we were talking about the other day, the aggregators that were there in the market, very well structured Kenya cooperative creameries, where people knew that, you know, I have dairy cows, this is where I'm going to take my milk, and these are going to get paid. And then at some point, now we saw many more companies, dairy companies coming up. So the market expanded. At some point, we saw those who were in the sector telling us that Kenya is actually not even able to meet its own demand for milk. At some point, that Kenya was producing so much that we could even export. At some point, there's a milk glut. At some point, there's milk shortage. So what is it that needs to happen? How much are Kenyan farmers getting per litre of milk? How much are Kenyan farmers inputting to produce 1 litre of milk? Does it make sense? Let's bring in somebody who's an expert in this. His name is David Maina. He's a dairy investment expert and a lead consultant for Performer, talking about economics of dairy farming in Kenya. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Now, we're talking about dairy and the dairy sector. Just before we begin this, for the benefit of everybody, give us the picture of the dairy sector in the country in terms of how much you produce, how much you consume, maybe how many farmers we have, or the best dairy producing area, milk producing areas, and such.
Yeah, that's a good background. I think let me just dig straight into that kind of data. The estimation right now is about 5.2 billion liters produced nationally per year, but that is also including milk from goats and camels. So I think we could look at 90% or thereabouts of that coming from cows. Mm-hmm. So cows would be around 4.23 billion liters in a year. But it's also good to make a disclaimer that sometimes our data is also very good estimations, but not very high levels of accuracy. So we could say that this is a working figure. Uh-huh. We have about 4.5 billion heads of livestock. So we have a bigger percentage of beef animals, and others are in between. They are there for beef, but people still, because of their livelihood, they also milk them. Mm-hmm. But in terms of high potential areas, we probably are having about 1 million farmers who are doing dairy at different levels, with a small percentage of them being in the medium level and large scale level. The majority, what we can say, perhaps over 80% would be smallholders, with one cow lactating, the other cow dry, and maybe a calf. You know, that's a typical smallholder in Kenya. Our consumption levels, we look at it better as per capita consumption. Mm-hmm. That's a figure that shows how much does every individual Kenyan consume in a year. It was estimated at 110 liters per person per year in 2010. So there hasn't been other very accurate research to tell us how far we have come, but there are some studies recently that have been putting it at between 120 and 130. The study that was done in 2010 was also projecting that in 2030, we will probably be doubling that. So looking at going up to 200 liters per person per year. For this data, it's also good to say that it shows that the people who live in the towns consume on average nearly 1.5 to 2 times the amount of milk per year than the persons who are than the rural populations. So there's also a bit of difference, though we report the average Kenyan per capita consumption of milk annually.
Is this per capita consumption met by the production, by what is available? Are we able to actually consume everything that we produce?
Now, I think so far there is a very minimal export, so we can say that all the milk produced in Kenya is being consumed here, with 90% of it going into fresh milk and only about 10% going into value-added products like yogurt and others. You know that our population is not very much used to highly solidified milk products like cheese and so on. So those more of a niche market, but a very good indication of the growing market in yogurt and fermented milk, mala or lala. But of course, a lot of our consumption is in fresh milk, where people are taking tea and of course consuming milk fresh. For most of the households, it is the milk used in tea. To answer your question about how does consumption compare with production, in terms of growth percentages, is that our consumption is growing at 7 to 8% per year. Our production is growing at 2 to 3% per year. That is data from Kenya Dairy Board in 2019 or end of 2018. So if you're looking at these graphs in terms of comparing the consumption and the production graph, the trend line is showing that we are moving towards a deficit where we will have to look out for milk from other areas or import milk, whether it is going to be, most likely, of course, because of availability, is going to be imported in terms of powder milk. We have to import milk for our people in the next about 5 years. It is very unfortunate, I think.
It is unfortunate, but since you are an expert in this field, tell us how it is. Well, one, we got into this position where, as you say clearly, we are facing a deficit, which means from time to time we also face this deficit. And secondly, how we can avert this, because it's something that we can foresee.
Yeah. Now, let me say that it's a major. I guess if there's anybody who is really thinking about this at the strategic levels of government, this must be a real headache. Because on one hand, we have a history where we always wait for the processors, the Tier 1 processors, to be able to report to the dairy board how much deficiencies they are having or how much deficit they are having, and that informs the board on whether to get a cabinet memo approved by the cabinet to be able to allow a window of importation. So there has been periods where they project a deficit, then a chance is opened for importation, then it is closed. I'm told that sometimes when it's open, the processors are not actually importing they actually import less than what is allowed for importation to be able to service that deficit. So what's happening now is that we might be looking at, instead of having periodical opening, we might have to say in about 5 years, if the trend continues, then we just accept that we normalize the fact that our milk, perhaps half of the milk we require, is coming from other countries. Now, what is happening at the production level is that there's a lot of burning of fingers by the farmers. And this has nothing to do with the inability of the farmers to do some good dairy farming at their level. It has to do with the right cost of production. So that if the enterprise does not make sense to the farmer, then the farmer does not primarily go to farming to help the country. They go to farming so that they can be able to feed their household. So it matters to them mostly if it can make sense and bring income to them. If it doesn't, then the thought of whether the country will begin to import, if I stop farming, that is not for the concern for the farmer. It is for his own viability at the household or at the farm level. So we are likely to see a situation whereby if we continue having rising costs, then we have many farmers dropping off, and then we have government having to think, what do we do? Because we have to feed the country. And that's what I'm calling an unfortunate situation, where we would have to be thinking about importing a basic commodity, which nearly every Kenyan household is using every day.
Still, allow me to just stick to this point.
Yes.
Are we saying that we are not able to make policy decisions that can ensure that we actually have sufficient milk production in this country?
We can have sufficient milk production, and I can tell you that so far, the production we have, and I think if you have looked at any comparison data, looking at how milk is produced in Africa, Kenya is rated second from South Africa. And in terms of our consumption, I need to say that we are rated the highest per capita in all developing countries globally. So it means that our consumption per capita is very encouraging. It is a huge opportunity for farmers. So even without touching the issue of policy, purely on market demand and supply, our consumption encourages production on its own because farmers can see there is a market. And then also, the development of our urban centers, which has been stimulated a lot by the revolution, then you see that we have a lot of people beginning to aggregate at the town centers, and we see a projection by FAO that by 2050, we have nearly 50% of all Kenyan population living in the towns or in the cities, and we have the other 50% forming the rural demographic. What that means is that our market prospects continue to increase, and therefore, naturally, they should also continue to encourage production. But now we have a problem right at the core of where production happens. Will a farmer accept to produce if they know they are going to make a loss? Mm-hmm. Let me take you through some information, if you allow me, just to show the situation that is dissuades the farmer from actually producing, and what the government must have a headache about, because this is what might drive us to a deficit, even when we are actually capable of producing in terms of skills, in terms of genetics that we have, in terms of climate, the ecological suitability, in terms of dairy farming in most areas in Kenya. If I take you through the numbers, then you will see why I'm saying that we are sitting in a very risky place as far as our prospects for feeding our people is concerned. Now, the food security definition has changed a bit. We no longer think about food security in terms of a household feeding themselves. I think we are now away from that. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, anybody would have thought that for a country to be said to be secure, it is a household ensuring that they can be able to produce food for themselves. But now, as we move towards a more settlement in the towns, then we are beginning to think that the food security now means feeding the people who are not producing. We have 5 million people or more in Nairobi. 90% of those sections in Nairobi, you cannot keep a cow. Perhaps there are some outskirts where dairy farming is happening. So all these people are consuming mouths, and they have no scope to produce because they are in restricted zones. And now that happens in all other growing towns. So then, food security now means feeding that family, but also feeding the people who are in the city. So that is therefore why I will not want to discuss that cow, what you can call the pet cow, which the household keeps to feed themselves. I would rather not look at that. Yeah. Let me look at that cow that feeds the farmer only with 10% of the total production, and that farmer has to take 90% of that production to the market. Mm-hmm. That is the farmer we must discuss, and that is the farmer who is stressed.
Okay, so if we were looking, David, if we're looking at this now, from a national point of view, whereby a country says that, even aside from being food secure, you want to make sure that you provide enough of a certain commodity to feed the country. We're not even talking about exports of certain product. So where should the priority lie then here?
Very good, yeah.
Where should the priority lie? Feeding the people, or making it for farmers to feed themselves, or making this commodity sufficient for the entire country? Where should the priority lie?
A farmer feeding himself and feeding his household, already we are past that. That was a good narrative for 1980 and perhaps earlier than that. After that, we began to see a lot of rural to urban migration. We have a lot of population, and then with the projection of 50-50 rural to urban demographics, then we know that our production cannot focus anymore on a household feeding itself. People feeding the two parents and their children. That household unit, we are past that. Of course, the government must think about the few Kenyans in some stressed areas where they have to be given food. I'm very sensitive about that. But I'm talking about the farming zones. We must look at them. These 80% of dairy farmers in Kenya must be looked at as the ones who are going to feed the country. So they must produce 80% of their production must come to be processed and presented to the shelf for the urban population to buy.
But then if I can interrupt you, David, then it is absolutely necessary then to make the environment conducive for them to do this supply.
Exactly.
A lot of the things that we've heard about imports coming in from countries like Uganda, milk and milk products and even poultry products, is because the cost of production is extremely low. Farm inputs like fertilizers and things like this, farmers can actually afford. So that is why they can afford to sell them at a cheaper price. Now, if we're saying that 80% of farmers in Kenya ought to provide for the national grid, as it were, then that means that their inputs also also must be affordable. Because just like you said, a farmer is not going to say, okay, well, yes, I have a national responsibility and something to provide towards, but I'm not going to take that out of my pocket. If it hurts me, I'm not going to do it. Is that not what we're dealing with?
Yeah, exactly. And I would like to, in fact, why I was driving it towards the point of the outlook of food security changing in all developing nations is that if it was the times of the second president and the first president, those ones had a duty to ensure that every family can feed itself. But now we have to make every farming commercial for anyone who is able, because we are constrained by this huge burden of feeding everybody who is a net consumer and has no scope to produce. I wanted us to look at that commercial side, and for now, because of this discussion, we ignore the pet cow, which is reared just to produce enough for the farmer. That cow, which is even given a name, and people come to pet around her. And now, let's forget about that cow. Let's talk about that cow who is kept to produce 25 liters, and the family is left with 2 liters and has to take to the market 23 liters. Let me guide you through what that cow eats, so that you see where we are going wrong. First of all, I begin by saying, in as much as we have made great steps in dairy for the last about 4 decades, we have now this major problem. We have some of the most competitive prices for milk. By the way, for your crew at the studio, let me tell you, our prices are good. Some of the cooperatives are actually paying farmers 43 shillings a litre of milk. And I'm talking about these cooperatives that have been able to move a level higher to process the milk for the farmer and actually do the entire route to market and present the farmer's product to the shelves by themselves, so that the milk goes the whole supply chain in the name of the farmer. Those cooperatives have managed a very good deal, and they are paying farmers attractively. And if you look at 43 shillings a litre, considering that our quality of milk is slightly lower compared to the European or American quality parameters, then that could actually be the best paid milk prices in the world, if you look at it in that respect. But then there's another issue that people don't look at. Farmers don't eat revenue. Farmers eat profit. So no matter how attractive a revenue might look like, Eric, for example, and your colleagues, if you get paid 1 million shillings today as salary, we can celebrate you for how much money you earn in a month. But if your house rent is 900,000 shillings, then when you go back to your house to do your budgeting, you are actually a very financially stressed person, regardless of revenue. So here we have a huge, very attractive revenue. If anybody from Netherlands looked at our prices, they would say, you guys are getting better paid than ourselves on average in a year. You're getting 43. We are probably getting about 35 euro cents, which is slightly lower, and our milk is higher quality. And I don't want to delve the quality issue because I don't want to make.
So it's about the cost of production.
That we have bad milk. But let me go straight to the feeding that cow. This cow that is commercial, and we have been able to move away from that pet cow. She is feeding about 5 kgs of napier grass. We have to include napier because that's what farmers have. She'll be feeding about 20 kgs of maize silage for her to produce 25 liters in early lactation. This ration can of course change when she moves towards calving because her milk production abilities are going to reduce. Then she's also feeding about 11 kgs of dairy milk. Can I surprise you that in the last about 2 years, dairy milk has risen from about 25 shillings a kg. The high yield dairy milk right now is at about 38 shillings a kg. It is becoming impossible to give cows dairy milk. And yet, the kind of genetics we have cannot produce without dairy milk. Dairy milk is what people generally refer to as concentrates. If I want to be a bit technical there, cows eat fodder, which is basically the leaf-based material that they eat, but they also eat the concentrates, which is the non-leaf part of feed.
David, if I may interrupt you at this point, David, I think there's actually a wealth of knowledge that you're beginning to share with us here, and because of time constraints, we may not be able to actually have enough to go with this. Can we say that we invite you again, so we're going straight into the cost of production of milk in this country?
And also talk about quality.
And the quality of the milk being produced in the country as well. So that we then see, does it make sense? What policy interventions are required? What is it that needs to happen? So that then the farmer can be profitable. Because that's the bottom line.
Thank you.
Asante sana, David.
Let me go straight. let me go straight to the total cost. I was going to split the elements, but I think it's not because of time. Let me just go to the total. I was going to arrive at a total cost of production of 34 shillings a litre. So, I mean, right now the minimum that has been set is around 33.
Wow.
So if we go by that, then it means a commercial farmer will be making a loss of 1 shilling per cow per day. And therefore, it's from the face value, it's a loss. Now, for the cooperatives that pay 40 shillings, then of course those ones can support a farmer to continue producing. However, those cooperatives have no control on the rising cost of concentrate, have no control on the rising cost of electricity.
All the other inputs.
And all the other costs, including taxes the government imposing without securing farmer.
That's very true. That's very true. David, thank you very much. Thank you very much for today. Thank you very much for today, David. Asante-san. I think we need to have some more time on this conversation, just to get to understand it. David Maina is a dairy investment expert and the lead consultant for Performer. We're talking about the economics of dairy farming in Kenya. Clearly, it's a conversation that needs to happen again. 29 minutes after 8. We'll be back shortly once we take a look at the weather and traffic. Good morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a mealie. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN. You better be ready. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. only on KTN Home. It's the Shining Stars TV show moment. Get ready to be inspired. Cruise the city in a bulletproof Cadillac. Get ready to be part of an exciting journey of discovery and learning with talented children.
Held me down, but I got up. Get ready, 'cause I had enough.
Get ready to be entertained by super amazing young talent. Because hii ni yetu. From our own talented stars, hosted by #1 TV host, Sleepy David. Shining Stars TV show, every Friday, 7:30 p.m. only on KTN Home. Be part of the journey.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing, as much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
Light rain in some parts, coming down to lows of 17 today. Highs will be 24. Highs will be 24 as well in Nyeri, where it's raining at 17. Mostly sunny conditions in Nakuru at 16 degrees. Highs of 24. Highs of 24 as well in Eldoret. It's mostly cloudy at 17. Going into Kisumu, the highs today will be 29. Partly sunny at 22. Partly sunny conditions at 22 in Kakamega. Highs of 27 and lows of 15. It's 27 and raining in Mombasa. Highs of 30, lows of 25. Lows of 26 in Malindi. Rain showers at 28. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kampala at 22, highs of 27 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam continues to rain as it will well into the weekend. 26 at the moment, highs of 30 and lows of 25. 15 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, going to highs of 23. 32 will be the high in Lagos. Clear skies at 24. Rain showers in Kinshasa at 23. Highs of 32 and lows of 24.
Spice FM. Nyeri.
Yes. Coming in from Thika Road, looking pretty good. Getting into the city, we don't have an issue there. Kiambu Road, normal traffic. It's not jam-packed. Getting into the city looks all right. The bypass is serving up some good vibes this morning. Kibarani accident towards the city centre today, about 30 minutes ago. Hopefully that has been sorted out so we can move along swiftly. Dunga Road, everybody's having to use the lanes. You can't walk or cycle getting into the CBD. So a lot of construction going on that is actually stopping things from moving as we would like them. But we'll keep an eye on things and see how it goes. Traffic on that hand is actually not too bad this morning. Let's take a look in about half an hour, shall we? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
6 minutes to 9. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. This time, let's talk about lands, okay? So the Ministry of Lands has launched this new platform. Land Information Management System. It was launched by the president the day before yesterday. Yesterday, we have seen stories that about 6,000 people in Nairobi went ahead to, get into the system. CT, you have some couple of concerns. We have heard, even from our listeners, a couple of concerns. Those who are speaking yesterday to the journalists were saying, all right, system challenges, system hiccups, those things, teething problems. This is Kenya.
It's not even just Kenya. There were bound to be teething problems. Okay? And as you correctly pointed out earlier, even the users were bound to have issues just trying to get their heads around how to actually understand this system and how to make it work for them. But even when they understand it, when you have a new system, before it's been tested real time with real people, with a real life situation, it must have hiccups. There is no system that is initiated and just works swimmingly from day one. My beef was, whether it was the reporting, whether it was the truth, it was being presented as this one thing that is going to cure all the ills that we've associated the Ministry of Lands with. It will do away with corruption, it will do away with cartels, but even more importantly, it will transfuse all the people who work in that ministry with new blood, so that all the evil thoughts that they've had and the evil thinking and the machinations they've had will disappear. And I would say that is not possible.
One thing I can tell you for sure is that it will not remove the emotional attachment that Kenyans have to land.
It can't.
It will not. And so there'll still be these very many issues because of the emotional attachment that people have on land. But let's bring in an expert who has dealt with matters of land in the country for very many years. In fact, a part of the team that spearheaded reforms in the land sector. And let's hear what he thinks about this particular Ardhi system. Dr. Mwenda Makathimo is a land governance expert. He joins us now on the line. Good morning, Dr. Harry.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to have you on the show again. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm happy to be here too.
So you knew that the system was being developed, the Ardhi. I mean, you play in this sector. Once it was launched, and once you saw, the kind of uptake that it's been having, what's your immediate reaction or feeling about the Ardhi system?
Well, first of all, Eric, I want to say that this is a move in the right direction. This country has been waiting for an automated land information system for over 30 years because we've had problems with the manual system, and we have very many forced tasks. We have had several cabinet secretaries saying they have automated land system every time they close the registries, but all they were doing is scanning documents and putting them in computers, standalone computers. That is not automation. So for the first time, at least we have a system that is close to a good platform for land administration system. So at least this is a step in the right direction, a system at least that is managing transactions, and a system that is at least managing documents in a manner that can be tracked and that reduces the face-to-face interaction. So for once we have a system, whether it is perfect or not is another question.
You've said, you've emphasized on that system. At least we have a system. But I'm almost hearing you in the background saying, well, is it going to be difficult to manage this system since it's still human beings behind it? What would it take to have this system run efficiently and then remove some of the ghosts of the past that have bedeviled this ministry?
Okay, first of all, because there has been the design stage, and there are still some issues at the design stage that need to be sorted first. For instance, the way the system is designed as of now, it is designed along the Department of the Ministry of Lands. If you go to the services, you will find the Department of Lands and the services at the department. Whereas land governance and land management in the country is not just based on the services and the department in the Ministry of Lands as it is now. There is the National Land Commission. You find in the system, the National Land Commission is listed as a department with only one function, land allocation. So that tells you the entire scope for the functions under the National Land Commission have not been designed to operate seamlessly in the system. The second is that land is managed not just at national level, it is managed also at the devolved level, at the county level. And the management at the county level is so intense because it is where development is controlled. It is where approvals are done. It is where taxation or property rates are collected. And therefore, it is important that system integrates with the system of land management that is going to service the county. So there has to be deliberate created modules that run the services at the county or connect to what the counties have developed, either the GIS systems or activities, or there are other enterprise management systems for development control and approval at the counties. Then also, there are other agencies that deal with land and spatial information. That is very, very important. For instance, you have the National Highways Authorities that always acquire land and they assess land called tenant, and then you have the tracker that deals with the transmission of power lines, and they have waves and easements everywhere, so they have affected land rights in many places. You have the Civil Aviation Authority that controls what you can do on certain pieces of land in terms of controlling the airlines and the height of buildings. So the interconnectivity and the interaction, the integration with these agencies and these services is what will make it a wholesome system. Then the people side. If you maintain the same people who are running away with their physical files and expect them to be different, then you have a problem. So how have they been trained? Are there any people manning the system? Where is the attitude change? Then again, the system must provide the full interface with private players who deal with land. I just logged in yesterday. I'm a registered valuer, and I did not find any place for a registered valuer to register. Those who deal with mass transactions, for instance, if I'm doing a valuation for a whole scheme, where will I go parcel by parcel to look for the information? I need information that is higher and in a more efficient manner. For instance, for our whole region, I need to have that facility as a practitioner, and I need that enabled. So we have a long way to go. I also tried it yesterday with a property where I've done some leasing, and it was saying the property is not existent, and yet it's a real property where I sit. So what we are trying to say is that the system must also be spatially enabled and capture the development, the real life development. And to get to this, you have to build a robust national spatial data infrastructure. So it's not just a document and transaction management system. What we have, I would say, is very good in the transaction management, but you have to go beyond transaction management to build a robust national spatial data infrastructure that integrates all the stakeholders.
But as I hear this, as I hear you say all these things, Dr. Makathimo, I'm wondering, was there stakeholder engagement in the development of this system? People such as yourselves, did you participate at any point in the development, in the design of the system?
Well, I did not participate in the design, but I would say there was a stakeholder invitations in February, and the invitation was mainly to demonstrate, not to seek to design.
So it was after design?
Yes, it was after design, not prior to design. Okay, there was a task force that went around 2 years ago collecting information from the country, but then after that task force collected information, the report was not released for interrogation. And then, of course, designing a system takes not just stakeholder meetings the way they are arranged in Kenya. It is where you say civil society comes in, the private sector. It takes looking at best brains and takes look at expert interrogation, expert testing, expert input properly. So if you do it in secrecy, then you're bound to face these challenges. But these concepts I'm speaking about are not new. They have been discussed. There has been even a plan before, about 10 years ago, on spatial data infrastructure establishment. Only that sometimes our government acts as if the memory has lapsed sometimes. I don't know why. You get very quality input, and it is shelved. Then another regime comes, speaks, and starts again. And we have ended up wasting a lot of resources before, claiming it is automation. When you are documents all over the region, Eldoret, Nakuru, any part of this country, but they were just scanning. If you scan one document and a transaction is done the next day and the document changes, you have done an exercise in futility. That's why, at least I appreciate that this time round there is automation. A step in the right direction. It is not perfect, but I appreciate at least this step is a good step. All they need to do now is make sure that the steps they have missed in the seeking expertise in design, in seeking to make this integrated, is now taken care of in a sincere manner and in an open manner. Let it not be done like it is a secret. I mean, there is nothing secret about property. Land information management systems. They are all over the world. So
okay. I like what you've said.
The cartels,
yes.
But professionals are not cartels. They can harness the resources.
Okay, you say they're all over the world. So I want to share your positivity, but I'd like to perhaps understand one or two things. One, in terms of systems, as systems go and knowing our needs as a country, was this the best system that we could have gotten? That's number one. Number two, because it costs us something, is it the best we could have gotten for what we paid for it?
Well, from what I understand, it has been developed internally by Kenyan experts, and it's not sourced from another country. And one thing I am happy about is sometimes when you depend on other countries and private companies to give you solutions, then you are at their mercy. So I agree that a home-based solution is good. As to the cost implications, that has not been disclosed. It's a question of transparency. That has not been disclosed, but at least I am confident that we have designers, we have software experts, we have IT experts who can develop good systems in this country. And Now that it is homegrown, I am much better. In fact, more secure because you can go and buy off-the-shelf systems that are suited to other countries and that do not reflect their social and other legal efficacy. So we are happy that it is developed here by our experts. So as far as that is concerned, I think that's a good move in part of government.
I agree with you, but is it in the public domain? Do we know who these experts were? Do we know what their background is? Do we know what it is that they've done which is similar to what we already have so that we can laud and appreciate it?
Well, I am only banking on the statement of the cabinet secretary. I am not sure who they are, but the cabinet secretary rightly says that they are Kenyans that they have not sourced from out. And anyway, we know land information software developers worldwide. And from an expert point of view, we would have picked it if it was sourced from outside.
City, why does it matter?
It matters very, very much because, you see, if you are telling us that you are building consensus on the confidence we should have in this system, then it behoves you to tell us everything about it. Tell us this is the process that we followed. These are the people who are involved. Look, let's look at the Building Bridges initiative. That's also a system, okay? We know the people who are involved in it. We know the process that they talked about. So you have some knowledge. So even when you want to poke holes into it and you want to shoot it in whatever direction, you have knowledge. But this one, we have system, solving all problems, okay?
Yeah.
I think you get where I'm going with this, Dr.
Yes. I get, the process management needs to be more transparent. And then also, you know, when I listened to the cabinet secretary saying that there are some properties that are in the system and others not in the system. What was the rush to launch a system that doesn't have properties in a whole central registry? So we have, she said the properties in the Nairobi registry are in the system, but properties in the central registry are not in the system. So what was the rush? If we are building it and we are building it in a sustainable manner, why don't we integrate all the properties for Nairobi? Because again, you know, when it was being launched, we were told, and tomorrow we will not accept paper.
Yep.
But then if you have a whole registry, properties in a whole registry not seen, and you're not, then how do you transact if they are not seen, you're not accepting paper? What will happen to the transactions in those properties? You know, property development and use is a continuous thing. It's an industry. So it means you will stay all those transactions because you are not allowing manual and you have not automated. So why wouldn't they have waited to have all of them in so that then when they say we have migrated, they migrate for sure.
Do you see this as a tool that will actually curb and curtail fraud and corruption? Do you see that happening? I mean, from your dealings there and then something like this, would it cut it out?
Yes. If the system works as as envisaged and works efficiently, for sure it will eliminate brokers. Once it eliminates brokers, a lot of irregularities will be eliminated. Then when you reduce the human interface, the face-to-face interaction, again, of course, it helps. Look at how KRA has benefited by having an automated system. But of course, that doesn't mean fraud cannot happen. You've seen people even colluding from the office and outside people colluding to rob KRA money. The same thing can happen. Those inside, if they don't have integrity, can collude with those outside again. The issue that we need to worry about more is also the awareness of the users. Because before, I registered in that system yesterday.
Yep.
Before you register, you have about 6-7 steps. Now, if you have an illiterate person or somebody who is not IT savvy or not even an expert, they will have to depend on other people to be registered. Yep. Now, if those people do not mean well, they can easily interfere with transactions. So that needs to be addressed so that the education of users countrywide is in place.
And that's very, very important. Thank you very much, Dr. Mwenda Makathimo, for this conversation today. We hope to have you again soon. Dr. Mwenda Makathimo is a land governance expert. He's been in this field for a long time. He understands land reforms in the country. Daktari, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daktari.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir.
6 minutes to 9 o'clock. Time for us to say goodbye as well to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us since 7 a.m. But the conversation continues on SpiceFM into the next hour. 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, and Malindi is 97.7. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great
Mature,
day?
intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
5:09. The conversation continues. I think what I've just taken out of that conversation with Dr. Makathimo is still the issue of user training and a lot of information sharing. Launch a project like this and make sure that the communication is aligned and start with the communication. We will soon be launching a new system that automates land transactions digitally. Automates it digital. This is what is going to happen. We will start with Nairobi, and for those in Nairobi, have you checked? Your LR number has now changed. Now this, and the other. Please go and check. Don't just put it in the newspapers. Go on to all media platforms. Go on to radio. Go on to TV. Go on to digital platforms. Have the conversation. Let everybody be aware that there's something that's going to happen. And then when you launch it, let us know, okay, so what do I need to know? If I'm going to use the assistance of somebody else, because there are very many people who will definitely have to use to be assisted. If I need to get assistance, what's the best thing to do? Establish a desk at Huduma Center and say, if you're unable to transact your own piece of land, go to Huduma Center and you will find this desk and they'll create for you your platform. Because the next thing is you go to a cyber and you're sitting at a cyber opening an account,
then you don't log out
for your piece of land. Even the cyber guy, there's very many risks here.
There's an element of danger that can't be ignored, but you know what you're doing is that you're just compounding City's position. City said this thing.
No. City is seeing a mongrel.
No, it was a mongrel. Now you've turned it into a monster.
Eric, Dr. Makathimo brought out issues, which I didn't bring up because I did not want to divert from my focus, okay? When Senator Orengo was Minister for Lands, they told us they had automated. When
Gilu
was Minister for Lands, they told us...
They closed this registry for...
They told us they had automated, okay? Now, we are being told it has been automated. Okay? Now, in all honesty, if you're going to make such a major change, and you understood it perfectly, Dr. Makathimo echoed it. Why are you rushing to tell us all these things when you know full well there are so many things that are yet to be responded to? There's lack of clarity on so many things.
Even some processes have not been completed.
Yes.
Some land is on this system. Another piece of land is not on the system. You need to go to another registry.
Now, why did you move us from that registry that we... Why don't you just let us continue our merry way until you are certain that this is what will happen, and you can tell us, You even have customer satisfaction survey where people tell you, I've used this system. It's very positive. I've done this. There's so much more. My position is not going to change. Yes, because the questions that remain unanswered are so many, and it feeds into that negative narrative that we've been dealing with for so long. An important government project is brought into being. It is even launched. Okay?
It's a legacy project.
Then you suddenly have more problems than you had before with the ancient system that you're trying to do away with.
Legacy project, my friend. You've got to time how you unleash or roll out the legacies.
I understand. This is not on the president.
When it starts,
it isn't on him.
This is the beginning. This is not the end.
Yes, it isn't on him because the president is not the president of the Ministry of Agriculture. He's the president of the whole country.
It's actually Ministry of Lands, but okay.
Yes, whatever it's called. Again, did I say agriculture?
Yes, you
I meant lands.
Okay,
land, agriculture,
farming,
growth, yes, that sort of thing. So, he set something in motion and said, we need to do this. He's being lied to. This thing is not even complete.
He says we need to do this, and he's assuming that the people that he has given this responsibility will get it done and get it right. His is not to look into the details.
He's being lied to, and with him, the rest of us are also being lied to. Okay? What these guys were launching is a sham.
Wow. City.
Something which isn't a sham actually works. And everything that you expect from it is functional.
6,000 people logged on yesterday.
And then you had 12,000 problems.
It worked.
Logging in is what worked.
Yeah.
Logging in is part of the system.
Makathimo logged into the system.
And then he also logged on for a piece of land that was told does not exist.
And his land has been working on that piece of land. And the system. Eric, in the year 2002, I was able to switch on a computer. Did it mean I knew how to use a computer? I had no clue how a computer worked, but I knew how to switch it on. And I marveled at all the things that are happening on the screen.
Keep it right here. The conversation continues. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
There is some traffic and not too much though on Mombasa Road headed out into the city. Not too terrible is what we're seeing right now. So the construction does continue all over the city. Industrial area, it looks a little bit slow now at that Lunga area, but it's all right. Getting into okay. Let's look at what's happening in Mombasa. Scores dead in Mombasa after an early morning accident involving a matatu in Changamwe. Matatu was headed towards Changamwe before veering off the road, falling onto the opposite side. Police are on the scene. Ambulances on the scene as well. Quite something. Headed in that direction, guys. Watch out for this one. And, of course, very unfortunate situation there. So eyes on Mombasa right now for that accident that took place. It's causing some traffic. And also looking at getting that cleared out. All right? Keep an eye on things. Half an hour. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Biggest conversation. It continues into the fourth hour of the show. CT, today's proverb.
If you can't resolve your problem in peace, you can't resolve war.
if you can't resolve your problem in peace, you can't resolve war.
Nope, not possible.
Ngumu sana. Hey. Okay. Before we move on to the next conversation, there's a comment I'm seeing there on my posts from Moses Gashari. You see that? It starts from the bottom. It says, our preso needs to rethink about our nation's direction. We can't have priorities on a document and no food, no vaccines, and a dead economy. Sad. Tell them to think about it. When can I come to the studio? I need to give the government my stand and Kenyan stand. I'll get from the house in Juja early to be at the studio. Time to address the problems in Kenya.
Well, all right.
Moses Gashari, give us a call. We'll give you a moment to address the nation.
Yes, we will.
State of the Nation address by Moses Gashari. 0719-012-600. Actually, tomorrow, Moses, call in, man. We want to hear what you think. So, at the end of today, Parliament will have made a decision, voted on that bill, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. I'm sure that's what you're talking about. The document is the BBI bill. So then tomorrow, Moses, you can react. Okay? Yeah. And he says, I will. Very good, Moses.
Okay.
We have a date tomorrow. Okay. So there's a conversation that we've been having on agriculture. And we give it due attention because agriculture is what we say is the backbone of Kenya's economy. Various aspects and sectors in agriculture. We've talked about tea, coffee. Today we're talking about dairy earlier. We have looked at even the issues of potatoes, we shall talk about at some point. Chicken and rabbit rearing. All those. We will deal with them because agriculture is big. But when it comes to the issue of tea, reforms that are being spearheaded by the government through the Ministry of Agriculture, a law that passed through Parliament, and then that law has been challenged by various stakeholders in the tea sector. Court cases here and there, injunctions here and there. Can you hold elections? Can you change directors? Can you not? What kind of reforms are needed here? What kind of earnings are Kenyan tea farmers getting? The majority of the tea in the country is produced by the smallholder farmers. And then we have the large plantations as well. What's a symbiotic relationship, if any, between those two, the smallholder farmers and the large farmers? How does the tea leave the country to go to the consumption markets? Does it go as raw material? How much of it are we processing and adding value to? How much of all these things is happening? So there's a conversation that we're going to be having shortly with the managing director of the East African Tea Trade Association. And what is that? What is the East African Tea Trade Association?
Well, as the name says, it's an association of all the players who actually are in the tea sector. You talked about large plantations. It's like a members club. You apply if you're in the tea trade at whatever level, whether you're a farmer, whether you're an exporter, whether you're a producer, people who are in the tea business. It's a private entity, but it is owned by those players who are in the tea sector. To put it as simply as I possibly can. It's not an NGO. It is not parastatal. Yes.
So it's private.
It's private.
It's an association that brings in the private. Does the government participate in this as well?
I believe the government has to. Remember, the government does have a very, very big say in what happens because tea falls under the sector of the agricultural sector. And we have a tea board. Now that's government. Yes. So they do have a say and they do play a part. Yes. Remember, even if it's an association that involves all the players, there must be some form of regulation. And usually regulation can be among themselves as members, but there's always government regulation. There always is. There has to be. You cannot have such an important sector that employs the number of people that we know it does and is a serious foreign exchange earner, and the government has no input. I mean, the input, quite aside from simply receiving what is due to it from the business that is conducted, the government has to have a say because the policy that guides the entire sector is a government policy.
That's true. Let's bring in the MD. Edward Modibo is the Managing Director of the East Africa Tea Trade Association. He's in Mombasa. Good morning, Edward.
Good morning to you.
Mombasa kwambaje?
Tuko sawa tunaendelea vyema.
Very good. Now, as we start the conversation, let's first of all understand where and the role that the East Africa Tea Trade Association plays. You're at the market end of the value chain. How old is the East Africa Tea Trade Association? Who are the members and who regulates you?
Yeah, thank you very much. The East African Tea Trade Association is a premier association representing the interests of tea companies in Africa. It was registered in 1956, and it's one of the oldest associations we have, not only in the country, but in the Eastern Central African region. The association covers the interests of all members of the tea value chain, starting from producers, warehousemen, the brokers, and the exporters, that is the buyers of tea, and packers. We also now have lately the associate members who have an interest in tea but do not necessarily hold that tea. The key mandates of EATTA are advocacy, representation, and the auction management, conducting the auction. So EATA is not just only about trade, the traders. It's about the full value chain, something unique that we have. We also have membership, not only in Kenya, but in 9 other countries, comprising Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC Congo, Madagascar, Malawi, Mozambique, and even Ethiopia.
Very many countries represented there in this.
10 countries are represented.
So in terms of regulation, are you regulated by any authority, or how do you operate? Or is it just the laws of Kenya? Companies Act?
We are governed, but we are a company limited by guarantee. And for purposes of regulation, we are registered as an auction organizer, and that is under the Tea Board of Kenya, previously AFA Tea Directorate. So we are licensed as an auction organizer, and we are governed by the Kenyan laws.
So what exactly happens? Let's go through that funnel right now with tea. By the time this process is getting to EATA, what is going on now at this funnel, now at this point?
The current issues, some of which are currently in court, and therefore, of course, I'll be limited to some of the issues at hand. What is currently happening is that the East African Tea Trade Association was one of the organizations. When I talk as the East African Tea Trade Association, I'm talking for and on behalf of my members. We felt that from 2013, when the Tea Board was put under consolidated AFA, the Agriculture and Food Authority, we had lost that flavor, that clout in terms of running the tea matters. Tea is very important to this country and the region. So instead of upgrading tea, we were consigned to a department under AFA, the Agriculture and Food Authority, where there were 10 directorates. So the issue is, we based on that, we sought audience, and the Senate gladly had a private members bill sponsored by Honorable Cheriot, to the extent that we now have a Tea Act. So it has been a process. We as an association and members support to have a Tea Act. The challenges and the constraints were some contentious issues which were never subjected to public participation in the first place. Those are what have brought us to where we are currently. But indeed, we have been very supportive and still stand supportive of the Tea Act, purely because we knew we would now have our Tea Board of Kenya back. We would also have the Tea Research Foundation back, so that these functional entities would help us drive the tea sector ahead.
Do I hear you to be saying, Mr. Modibo, that I want to understand this, that when you were then put under a certain department, you lost some autonomy that you felt the tea industry actually needs for it to thrive? Is this what you're saying?
This is exactly what I'm saying.
All right. So
we lost it.
Yes.
Let's compare ourselves with countries like India and Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Sri Lanka has even Ministry of Plantations and Tea.
Mm-hmm.
They see the importance of tea to the extent that we even have a Ministry of Tea. In Kenya, where we had the Tea Board of Kenya up to 2012, it was robust and functioning well. Why did we have to take the tea sector, which is self-sustaining, to a consolidated experiment called AFA? That is where we lost it. So
and who else was in AFA, Mr. Mudibo, apart from the tea industry?
In AFA, we had other directorates, coffee, pyrethrum, all the other commodities, oil, nuts and oils. They come to about 10 directorates. So horticulture, those come up to make up about 10. And I do recall where I chaired the Agricultural Industry Network. In 2012, 2013, we were actually pleading with the government not to have AFA be moved in the form it is currently, not be constituted it is. We were lobbying against, initially it was ALPHA, if you recall. We had Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Food Authority. When we lobbied with government, livestock was dropped. Thereafter, fisheries was dropped. Finally, it was Agriculture and Food Authority, which has 10 directorates. So all this was a mistake, and I think in recognition that it was an error, the government is now again restructuring AFA so that we don't have AFA in the form it is. Because now we have tea out of AFA, coffee will be out of AFA, sugarcane will be out of AFA. So it was a mistake. Admittedly, it was a mistake, and this is now where we are at. We are seeking to have tea board function in the best interest of the tea sector.
Something that I'd like to ask Mr. Mudibo, when we talk of the tea sector, you see, most Kenyans interact with the tea when they're drinking it or when they're buying it.
Yes.
But as to all these details that have plagued us in the media, most Kenyans are not aware. So tell us, when we hear of small-scale farmers or when we hear of the government, and when you think of government in tea, one thinks of KTDA. I said, anecdotally speaking, what percentage of the tea in this country is actually produced by small-scale farmers, the Mwananchi?
The tea produced by the small-scale farmer, the Mwananchi, comprises of about 90, that is about 55%.
65%.
Then 55%, then 35% comes from the plantations, and 10% comes from the independent tea factories, tea companies, those which are owned, family-owned, business people-owned, and even owned by individuals. Those comprise 10%.
Okay. From what we have gleaned, we are in the media, and from what our colleagues in the media who work in this sector have pointed out, there seems to have been a lot of disquiet among these small-scale farmers who arguably have, should we say, produced the bulk of the tea that we have in this country. Now, as an auction, you will fall or you will be in the direct line of fire because it is through your functions that the tea that is produced eventually goes into the market and are sold. Now, let me ask the question I want to ask. Would you say that the tea farmer in this country gets a fair shake for his work and for his produce?
Indeed, I would want to reaffirm that it is a fair share. The farmers get a fair share. If we've done the tea value chain study, we had a study conducted about 3 years ago. And out of it, on average, for the small scale holder, you'll find that about more than 70% goes to the farmer. Then the other cost, which was quite large, would come to issues to do with the energy, labor, the factory processes. These comprise also another key cost. Contrary to assertion that much of these costs are lost through the trade, I would want to say that even for the brokers who sometimes are vilified, they only take home about 0.92%, not even 1%, goes to the tea broker fraternity. Warehouse men is about 1%. Management fees, slightly above 1%, about 2%. So it's really, we have to be fair. We have these figures and the facts and figures which you cannot change.
Okay.
But when we look at the farmers, it's because of their smallholders. And the smallholders, maybe some having about a quarter of an acre, half an acre, many of them, in fact, the majority of the farmers have that small size, which we appreciate. At the end of the day, we also need to recognize that they have a take-home on a monthly basis. How many other crops can assure farmers to have some regular and constant income? Better get that little you have, but get it regularly than not get it at all.
But I guess the complaints by the farmers is not the fact that they get a little. It is the fact that that little has been reducing over the years. So what are these factors that have led to a reduction in earnings for the tea farmer?
Yes, indeed, I get you quite well. We have various factors that play in terms of the take-home. The prices of, this is now we are looking at the price, the declining tea prices. So many factors have been at play. Give, for instance, the quantities. There have been quite some overproduction of tea. Way back in 2012, for example, the production of tea was 360 million kilograms. Currently, it stands at more than 550 million kilograms. Within a span of that period, 2012 to 28 years, now we are in the 9th year. With that, it's substantial quantity. Kenya leads in Africa in terms of production. So one factor is the quantity. And we normally look at the more the production, of course, and without resultant demand, then the prices are likely to come down. But we also have the fluctuations in prices. I would not want to believe that it's only declining. There are times it fluctuates. We have high prices. We have low prices. It keeps on like any other commodity. The factors of supply and demand are what dictate. The other ones, they are both internal and external factors. We have issues of cost of production, rising cost of production, taxes, myriad taxes. From farm to cup, we now have about 45 taxes and levies. Wow. Nobody is talking about that. We are looking at a concentration of 5 markets, which are taking more than 70% of the market share. We are not also looking at that because when you have a concentrated market, then the prices are not likely to be that attractive because now we are price takers. The rest of the world takes the other 30%. So these are, again, some of the factors we really have to look at.
Can I come back on that tax issue, Mr. Mudibo? Why, unless I heard wrongly, you said something about 45%?
45 taxes.
45 taxes,
45,
rather. So of these,
45, yes.
Right, so 45 taxes, on what scale are we looking at? So are we saying that essentially 45 taxes that you must pay for you to get your result? Why so many? And I'm thinking about the many taxes that used to be put on doing business in the country and how that was kind of regulated, and so the ease of doing business was then introduced. Why so many in the sector? And you said it's not been addressed, and how come?
This has been a matter we've taken up time and again, and apparently we would have expected the National Assembly to be also of help. But the fact that taxes are paid, I would say maybe they feel so long as we can fund our normal day-to-day operations as a country, then pay taxes, They're beneficiaries also. So I don't think this is something they would really want to scrutinize. But other than looking at taxes as being the militating aspect, we look for scapegoats and look for who can we blame. The realities are very clear. We have clear parameters to gauge and confirm. I am putting 45 because the 45th one is actually the minimum tax, which is now, of course, it's in court.
Yeah.
The 44th one is the ad valorem levy, of which we've gone to court to contest. And of course, we can't discuss much about it because it's something that is there, but it's the fact that ad valorem levy was a tax which the government had removed in 2014. It has reintroduced it. We are not opposed to paying a levy. All we are opposed to is it being charged on quantum. Because what it means now, when you talk of ad valorem levy, you're charging the same farmers you are purporting to help, you're charging them 1% of the value of tea, as opposed to charging based on the quantity of production. If it's quantity of production, we'll be looking at about 550 million shillings, which I can now confidently say would not be a pinch to the farmers, to the producers. But 1% of the value of exports would be looking at 1% of 120 billion. And that comes to about 1.2 billion that would be taken from the farmers. So we really need to be realistic when we are saying we are doing all these reforms for the benefit of the farmer, when on the other hand, we are pinching the same farmer.
Is there a reluctance? I mean, because the last couple of weeks, we've had these conversations around value add in the tea sector and saying so many things then need to happen for it to be a viable commodity, etc., etc. But then I'm looking at this tax issue that you've talked about, etc. Is there a general reluctance to actually deal with this once and for all?
Every time we have hope that the government will at least listen. One of the areas, just to show, to demonstrate, Kenya exports 95% of the tea. We only consume 5% of the tea. The 95% we export, and we are pleased and happy that the government has done that, is free of VAT. Any teas that come through the auction, they are not charged VAT. Unless if you're buying from the factory and exporting, then of course you'll claim back VAT. So 95% is exported. We only consume 5% of the tea produced. That comes to about, the per capita Kenyan drinks is 500 grams. 500 grams. Now our question is, why can't you free the populace of this 5%? If you can allow 95% to be exported without any tax, you can as well also encourage local consumption of tea to be beyond that 500 grams. Countries like Ireland, they consume about 2 kilograms per person. We are only consuming 500 grams, and yet we are producing the best of the qualities of tea. So who do we blame? If we don't have confidence in drinking our best quality tea, why do we blame any others for low prices? So this should be a concerted effort as a nation. We need to show up local consumption. We need to encourage people to drink tea locally, and maybe it may make a difference. India, for example, produces 1.2 billion kilograms of tea, but they consume 1 billion. They only export 200 million. So you can see the case situations we can learn from.
When I hear you talk about this consumption, the local consumption, I mean, Kenya, in every Kenyan home, you're going to be served tea. And that's only 5% of what we produce. Is it because of VAT, really? Is it because tea is one of the least expensive items on a shopping basket?
It appears to be, but look at across the country, across our borders, Tanzania. Tanzania is not charging VAT on tea. Why don't we follow that good example, those good case examples? If I was at the border point and I was to buy a Kenyan tea or a Tanzanian tea, that small difference for a peasant or for a person down there, the local low-income earner, would go for what is cheaper.
Yeah.
That's natural. Even for those who are well-to-do, they will be comparing what is cheaper. So let's give it a trial. I think it's something the National Treasury should consider. And then we see, even if it's for 3 years, can it make a difference? Can we have a national campaign to promote local consumption, even as we seek for other markets abroad?
Mr. Budibo, how transparent is the process that IATA oversees the buying of tea, the warehousing, the selling of it abroad, the information as to the quantities sold, where they go to, how much is realized. How transparent is IATA in this regard?
One aspect is in terms of the governance of EATTA. EATTA is self-regulating. First and foremost, we have the sub-associations. I've talked about all members belonging to, across the value chain, being members of EATTA. We have the Tea Producers Association, Tea Buyers, Tea Brokers, Tea Warehousemen, and Tea Packers Association. So 5 associations. They meet quarterly. They elect directors. We have the 10 countries. Out of the 10 countries, the other countries, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi, have directors on the board of IATA. So their interests are also protected. What I'm exemplifying is that the transparency process in terms of electoral, getting the leaders to guide their affairs. Now, that put, we also need to appreciate that we have got board committees, finance, audit, ICT, rules committee. All these committees, again, sees aspects for and on behalf of the members. It's done through a clearly transparent process. When teas are designed to the auction, again, it's a system that is working. We have clear rules and regulations. And for any rule to be changed, it must be approved by all the members. And that's through a majority vote of the members of the sub-associations. So just that tells you how things work out clearly. When teas are also provided into the auction, again, it's through a competitive process. The one who bids, the buyer who bids a higher, puts in a higher price for it, takes the tea. A clearly transparent process. In fact, this now has been enhanced electronically. So we used to have an open outcry system until May last year, but through the support of Trademark East Africa, we have now automated. So buyers can buy from the comfort of their offices and their homes. So I would like to vouch that indeed we have a clear, transparent system. It's open to audit anytime. It can be verified because there's really nothing to hide. But what comes out is that when prices are good, nobody complains. When prices come down, then they look for scapegoats. Is it the IATA? Is it the brokers? Who is the cause of the problem? Let's be realistic. The figures are there to show. We have figures for as long as this auction has worked. Average prices are done and provided on a weekly basis. We have market reports which are also made public on a weekly basis. Who bought what quantities, what are the trends in the world. So really, there is really nothing to hide in this context.
Just stay with us, Edward. We will have more on this conversation coming up to ask you about the accusations of insider trading, understanding the production of tea, understanding the entire marketing and value chain of tea, and also seeing what are these reforms and what would the IATA be proposing in terms of amendments to the reforms. Edward Mudibo is the managing director of the East African Tea Trade Association. He's with us this morning at 9:30. Let's take a break. This conversation continues shortly. First, let's see how the roads are looking, and then we will be back. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
"24 teams, 12 host cities, 6 groups, all battling for one trophy. The long-awaited Euro 2020 is here at last upon us. The fans might not be within touching distance.
Good cross, Giroud attacks it and scores, and France are ahead!
But the atmosphere will only get to a fever pitch. From the 11th of June to the 11th of July, catch the tackles, the goals, and all your favorite football stars as the elite European nations go head-to-head. The Standard Group brings you the UEFA Euro 2020 tournament live across our channel.
Oh, what a wonderful goal!
Sports as the official UEFA Euro 2020 free-to-air broadcast partner in Kenya, because we live for the game. And that's why at Standard Group, sports lives here.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone in Wasingishu was asking me, what channel is SpiceFM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero.
All right. Cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, highs of 24 and lows of 17. Light rain in parts of Nyeri at 18 degrees, highs of 24, lows of 15 today. Mostly sunny conditions in Nakuru at 19, highs of 24, lows of 14. Lows will be 12 in Eldoret, where it's mostly cloudy at 21. 24 is what it is in Kisumu, mostly cloudy, highs of 29. Cloudy conditions as well through most parts of today in Kakamega, highs of 27, lows of 15. Highs of 30 and lows of 25 in Mombasa, where it's raining. It continues to rain in Malindi as well at 28, highs of 30. 27 will be the high in Kampala, where it's cloudy at 21. Rain showers in Dar es Salaam at 26, highs of 30, highs of 23 in Johannesburg, where it's sunny right now at 16. It's mostly sunny in Lagos at 24, highs of 32, highs of 32 as well in Kinshasa, where it still continues to rain at 23. It's sunny in Beijing at 21. That'll be the high for today. Coming down to lows of 9 as they go towards the end of their day. Partly sunny conditions in Paris at 8, highs of 14 and lows of 15. 5 degrees and sunny in London, highs of 12 and lows of 2. Things are starting out quite warm in New York today at 15, looking at highs of 21 and lows of 14.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
Yeah! You're listening to Spice FM.
Nothing shouting at
traffic.
Us really this morning in terms of traffic. Moving along slowly, getting into and out of the CBD. Not as bad and sticky as it was yesterday. Looking a little bit better. Coming out of Westlands, going towards Kipande Road after Museum slows down a little bit, but it should be all right. Getting into the CBD and outbound as well. Coming from Thika Road as well. It looks pretty good, guys. I think we did well for traffic today. Keep an eye on things and see. Hopefully they get better. If they do, let us know. And if you get stuck somewhere as well, let us know as well. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. And you can text on 40127.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
25
right.
to 10. We are back having a conversation with Edward Mudibo. He is the managing director of the East African Tea Trade Association, talking about the tea sector, reforms in the tea sector, what needs to happen so that the tea that producers are growing makes sense to the producers and to everybody else who is in the value chain, and that is warehousing, brokers, packers, marketers, and everybody. Several questions that are on social media, Edward, as we begin. Somebody saying, why is it that tea growers in Rwanda are making $6 per kilo, while tea growers in Kenya are making $3 per kilo? Is this, first of all, is this the case, and why?
There are quite a number of factors at play in terms of the what one earns. One is matters. We're looking here at issues of quality. Quality is one of the factors at play. If the quality of the tea is good, then of course it will attract specific buyers of tea who are ready to pay any price for it. So one aspect is about the quality. The other one is demand for those specific teas by respective buyers of the tea. Let's also look at the function of it. When we look at Rwanda in terms of average, again, what quantums are we looking at? we could be looking at about 20 to 30 million kilograms on an annual basis. What we have for Kenya is more than 550 million kilograms. Of course, that's not to say that there should be a consolidation for that. We are looking at also the quantum. On average terms, you are more likely to arrive at something appropriate when you are dealing with a smaller quantum. But let's also admit that Rwanda got it right in terms of policy. Kenya itself does not have a national tea policy. Rwanda came, realized Kenya was trying to develop one in 2013. They picked Q, they came up with a national tea policy. They're implementing, they're very clear where they want to go on matters of tea. They learned from us. Who are the experts doing most of the things in Rwanda?
Kenyans.
Are Kenyans in many of the factories in Rwanda. But they appreciate to learn. Once they learn it, they internalize. Their own people proceed on with it. So there are many factors at play. We want to admit Rwanda has got it right in terms of the core issues to do with quality. 2 leaves and a bad, proper processing at the factories. There are so many factors get into play to arrive at the appropriate quality. So, right, the person who has asked that, I think, is quite averse, clear with the situation. That is what is happening. But that is not to say in Kenya we are not doing that well. We can still continue to improve in terms of quality matters.
Something else is about what you said, an overproduction, which is also impacting our pricing and all. But I want to look at it this way. You're saying in 2012, we were doing about 350 million kilograms per year.
Yes.
In 2021, we are doing over 550 million kilograms per year. So there's improvement in terms of production. Just the other day, we were having a conversation with the person in charge of New Kenya Planters Cooperative Union talking about coffee. And he was giving us the other conversation that one of the things that's happening in the coffee sector is that there's a reduction in production, moving from 150,000 tons per year to 35,000 tons per year. And that is also impacting our position in the global trade. So how is it then in the tea, doing well in production is affecting our prices? Yet we are looking at India doing 1.2 billion kilograms per year. Sri Lanka is producing less than us and taking less than us in the market, but they're earning more than us in the market.
So I think one thing we have to appreciate is that people have realized that tea is the only consistent commodity. Looking at the country right now, the landscape, we know of many other commodities which have really been in ICU or are not or are struggling. Let's mention coffee itself you started with. What we are doing is a small fraction of what it was. Coffee used to be the leading export earner.
Yep.
Talk of cotton, pyrethrum, sugarcane again is having issues. Even maize, which we expect to be so basic to manage, there are challenges in sorting out the maize issues. So for tea, you can look at it from the context that more people are going into tea. Even the number of counties that are growing tea has increased to 21 counties. And even those which were not traditional tea producing counties. So we have to appreciate there's something good in tea that makes more people move into it to earn a livelihood that is consistent and dependable. These other matters so quantum is too much of it is what is also making the prices come down. There's also the matter which was raised, of course, by earlier on, and I want to tie it up with this. So long as we can maintain quality, and quality is handled in different contexts, we can have less of this leaf hawking. We cannot, leaf hawking is one of the contributors. They call it margarito in some areas. And then we also have the mushrooming of a number of tea factories, some of which do not even have the tea available to process. Substandard processing machinery, if we look at it. All these connive to contribute to declining quality. And I'm attributing that to what was raised, but even now, So long as we can maintain good quality standards, we will get it right as a country. So at least this is where we are saying at least smallholders that earn that small but sustainable income.
Who is to ensure the quality of this production? Or who is to ensure the quality of this end result? And make sure that it's, because, I mean, from what you're saying, it's not there yet. It needs to get there, and then it needs to be maintained at that, if not higher. Whose responsibility is that? Or is it a collective one?
This is a collective responsibility, and I would put it also, look at the, from the one point is the Tea Board of Kenya. Currently the Tea Board of Kenya. They're the custodians, they're the regulators. But we ask ourselves, how many officers do they have? The Tea Board is seriously understaffed. When it was as FRT Directorate, seriously understaffed. Even right now, I would watch. I really doubt we have more than 5 officers. They don't even reach. I'm being a bit too generous. There could be 3 officers supposed to oversight the whole tea sector in the country. So it starts from there. The regulator, we don't have the resources at the regulator level, so they can't provide the required oversight on matters of tea. Of course, it should be everyone's responsibility to do that, but also if you don't, at the farmer level, you don't also do what is required of you to pluck 2 leaves and a bud, then of course you'll not also earn the same income as your colleague who is doing so. That's where, again, you get complaints from certain quarters. How come so-and-so is getting more than myself? It depends on what you produce and what you deliver. You only can get as much as the quality of what you deliver. So there are so many factors that play in that regard.
Mr. Mudibo, what determines the quality of tea? What we drink and what we're told in tea bags, I'm told it's referred to as tea dust. Not a very good name, but essentially, same with coffee. There's some stuff that we refer to as coffee mud. Now, what is it that would make tea or some tea good, some better, some best, some medium, some mediocre? What determines this?
There are so many factors at play in terms of determining actually the qualities of tea. It will go with the granules. It will go with this is where now the broker comes in to assess the quality of tea. And they normally do sampling of the tea to assess it in terms of taste, in terms of appearance. There are so many factors which they are there, whereby now the broker will be able to make out what price can he assign or a reserve price he can assign to a given tea. Granules would be the first, and then there are other appearance, the liquor. There are many factors which are at play in determining what really would make a good cup of tea.
Okay.
It also goes by the various markets. It depends on what the buyer wants. So what you deem as good quality may not be good to another. If we look at what you are calling dust, or what may be even not considered as valuable tea, which may be going to countries like Somalia, Sudan, to you'll be looking at that as not worthy. Maybe what you're using in tea bags, to them it's the best. They're ready to pay possibly even $2 or more for the same tea which you disregard. So that actually there are many factors that play again when it comes to determining. What we have consolation
yes,
is brokers always will come up with what is accurate, and that is why, they are good referees between the producers and the buyers in terms of determining what is indeed good quality tea for this purpose.
There's somewhere I'm going with this question, Mr. Mudibo. What I want to ask is this. When we talked about Rwanda, and we talked about, that's when the issue of the quality of tea came in. Is it only quality, or are we also talking about value addition to this tea? And if we're talking about value addition, are we saying that if there is value addition, that the farmer also benefits from this value addition? Because with the value addition, you will definitely get a better price.
Yes, indeed. I concur. Value addition also is important, but it depends on also how you conduct it. How do you want to arrive at that? Because then it means we need to, over and above the black CTC teas, we need to be looking at also diversifying to orthodox tea, purple tea, and various other forms of value addition. We need to diversify because we've been predominantly known for the black CTC tea. But also, for you to enhance value addition, which we are seeking and striving to do, we also need to look at issues to do with the tariffs. If you value add and you have to export, you need also to note that there are those countries, receiving countries, which may impose quite punitive taxes and impose other barriers, trade barriers that will militate against value addition. There is also high levies on imported packaging materials. So that is a matter the government also has to look at. There are also limited incentives given by government. If you compare with Sri Lanka that we always use to benchmark, the government gives in a lot of incentives. For them to reach the 50% value addition, the government has invested for over 20 years. 20 years to attain the level they are. So you have to put in money where it belongs. But for tea, what we've had are those myriad taxes and levies, and we keep on adding more and more, and nobody is ready to invest in this lucrative area. So value addition is the way to go, but it has to be done the right way.
Right. Okay, well, looking at value addition, I mean, I keep going back to the farmer, and the farmer who's been complaining for the longest period of time that they're not seeing the value in this little that they're doing right now. So then even going to areas of value addition, does it guarantee, would that, for example, as one of the factors, would it guarantee that the farmer would be in a better place in terms of what they earn? Because if it's not, and I'm almost cautious to say it, then it really wouldn't be their cup of tea.
In terms of one thing, also let's appreciate that what quantities are we looking at? If you're having a quarter of an acre or a half an acre, and your earnings, what would be the difference? Sometimes part of what is being contributing to all this is the quantum. You can only get so much in a quarter of an acre or a half an acre, and annually it will continue to replicate. So sometimes we could be looking at this that so many people are complaining, but how much is it that they are making for this from this 1/4 of an acre or half an acre? And how many farmers are involved? Most of the smallholder farmers actually fall within the brackets of less than 1 acre. So even on an annual basis, if it's about 8,000 you're making on a quarter of an acre, or even for an acre for that purpose on a monthly basis, if you are lucky too, then you can see we are looking at very, very nominal amounts which you cannot blame anybody for.
Not really, Mr. Mudibo. Let me interrupt you here. The issue here isn't the acreage that one has, but perhaps the kilos that you produce. Because we cost this thing per kilo. So whether I have an acre and my acre produces 10 kilos and someone's acre produces 100 kilos, it shouldn't matter, because what I get from my 10 acres will be commensurate, or for my 1 acre, should be commensurate to what it is that I have produced. The issue here, I think, is the beef that has been brought forth, and what we keep reading about is what is priced per kilo.
Per kilo. The pricing.
Yes. Not the total, not the overall costing of it.
And farmers have been crying that then this pricing for what they'll be paid is not commensurate to their input. In terms of time that they also have to wait for this payment, by the time some of this payment actually comes to them, they find themselves in debt. So they're not worried about how much land I have upon which I farm, but that which I have, how much are you pricing for the kilos that I bring to you?
Yes, I hear you in that regard. It may not just be the size of the land, it's the kilos that you take, but also you have to look at all factors of production, which have to be there and are constant. We have to appreciate the high cost of production, which you'll have labor. The people who do the plucking, for some of the farmers, if they're not doing it themselves, the cost, transportation, the processing at the factory level, transportation to Mombasa.
Are farmers members of IATA, Mr. Mudibo?
Through their respective farm factories, because the farmers elect their directors at the respective companies.
Okay.
Once they elect their directors, those are their representatives. Those factories, through the management agent, if it's a smallholder sector, have their teas transported to Mombasa. If it's for the auction, if it's for direct sales, that's a different matter. We only deal with teas which are offered at the auction.
Okay.
So farmers in that context are quite well represented.
So as a body that brings all these people together, and what I'm hearing you say, it's from where we sit, we understand when there's a communication problem. Yes, if you're talking about taxes, cost of production, do the farmers understand this thing in the details that you do, so that when they get their money, they understand this thing has nothing to do with other players. It has to do with the cost of production. It has to do with the cost of transportation. It has to do with the cost of inputs, all that. Do they understand all these things? The question I'm asking, have efforts been made to get them to understand these things that you're saying?
I do believe, thank you, I do believe, I may not speak for the management agents, but I do believe that the management agents have a docket or department or a section that deals with outreach to the farmers. We have the farmer field schools. We have got where they are taught different things. I'm sure they are sensitized on a regular basis. Maybe more needs to be done so that
it's clear they're not sensitized adequately.
Yes, maybe more sensitization needs to be done, because you'd find, I mean, some of the questions and some of the issues being raised, you'd expect them to understand it in the first place. They shouldn't be asking some of the kind of questions being asked. You expected them to be obvious.
If it was explained to them, would they really be asking it?
But if it is explained, sometimes we choose to hear what is best for us.
Actually, what people hear more than anything else, Mr. Mudibo, is the money that eventually comes to them. If it is less than what they've been receiving and the explanation doesn't make sense at the time they're receiving it, they will not understand any explanation you give.
Yeah. And as we continue with that, we have a call on the line. Alan calling in from Nairobi. He'd like to participate in the conversation. Good morning, Alan.
A quick one, brother.
Yes.
The other day, Ndu made, on this same subject, Ndu made some comment which I found very enlightening, which is that how is it that Switzerland, the cocoa prices there, I mean the price of chocolate and the price of chocolate in West Africa. The theory is simple, that value added only happens best in the area of most consumption. So that value added, I mean, there's a guy called Jonathan Block here who has been doing tea and coffee for a long time, doing value addition. Yeah, but you can't compete with Starbucks. Value added only gives you much more money in the location of consumption. That's one theory we must not forget. Now, Mr. Mudibo is a very diplomatic man. Yeah, Mombasa tea auction is what the New York Stock Exchange is in the financial market. This is the biggest tea auction in the world. It sets benchmark prices for tea prices in the whole world. And then the other day, they sent city council askaris to go and raid the place. I think, Mr. Mudibo, I think that was the lowest they have gone in these tea reforms. Send guys to go and raid the international tea auction. I rest my case, brother.
What are the reasons for that raid?
Thank you, Alan.
Yes,
Edward,
thank you for that.
Oh yeah, what were the reasons for the raid?
That was an order the AG obtained through the Chief Magistrate's Court. It's a matter being heard today. We may not say much about it, but of course, as intimated by the caller, it's most unfortunate. You don't get into a fishing expedition so that you can find out if they are false. If there were indeed material issues that had been done wrongly, then you charge the offenders on specific charges. But you don't get into a fishing expedition to say, we'll pick all these things to go and find out what you did wrong. That's exactly, I would say, sum up as what was taking place. Find out, pick everything and see if they were false. If you have material things, we have an open system here. We have the whole world which can look at what we are doing.
Yeah.
And I would say we would have nothing to hide. Up to now, I would say we have nothing to hide, and the future will vindicate what I'm putting through. Buddha thing, we have a functioning judiciary, And this matter there is something which has taken place whereby a determination shall be made, and we believe will be vindicated.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Edward. Edward Mudibo is the Managing Director of the East African Tea Trade Association. Asante for sharing all the information that you have shared with us. And as we conclude the show today, listen to today's proverb from C.T. Muga.
Right. If you can't resolve your problem in peace, you can't resolve war. It's a Somali proverb.
Edward, do you relate with this?
If you can't resolve your problems in peace?
Yes, you can't resolve war.
Okay. And yes, I hear you very well. And this is where we are. As people, we are very calm. And we are doing a lot for the public. And that is why, despite all that, we made sure that the auction had to run, the tea sector has to thrive. We don't want to go the path others have done. We've been self-regulating over the years. We've managed to have clear rules and regulations. We really want to appreciate the public support and assure you we shall continue working and striving to give you the best. Thank you so much.
We will call you probably at a later date because we'd like to talk about these value additions and the things you say the government would like to do.
Yeah.
We'd like you to talk more specifically about what we've seen done and what we, as when we talk about government, I'm talking about our government can actually do to ensure that our tea sector is as competitive as the others we keep referring to.
And a response to what Alan is saying.
Yes.
Value addition works best at the point of consumption.
Yes.
Is that true? Does it make sense? So we'll have a conversation with you on that, Mr. Mudibo. Asante sana for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kenya's biggest conversation, and we thank you very much for all your participation this morning. We've been live since 6 a.m., coming up to 10 a.m. Tomorrow, we will have more of these conversations. What happens from 11, Ndu?
All right, Sugar and Spice comes in with Yolanda and DJ Absolute. And then Monique comes in with a Spice Drive at 3, is driving you home. And then Barbara, adults in the room from 7 to 10. And we will be back
on Monday and Saturday.
Tomorrow is Friday.
Oh,
yes.
Tomorrow is the second Friday of the week.
Wow.
The final Friday of April.
Because Eric opened his mouth at 6 o'clock to tell you that it was Friday.
Yeah, today is Friday number 1. Tomorrow is final Friday of April. Good morning.